regular city commission meeting of Tuesday, March 12, 2013 to order. May we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we take roll.
Commissioner Bushy.
Here.
Commissioner Krzyjak.
Here.
Commissioner Perry.
Here.
Commissioner Rubino.
Here.
Mayor Costello.
Yes, we're all here. Before we start, there is a note here for me to solicit a motion to amend the agenda to delete item 15, which will undoubtedly result in everybody leaving the room because they all came here for the dragon. But the dragon has been sold, so there is no dragon to put on the green belt. Is there a motion to remove item 15? There is no event, there being no dragon.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
We would take a vote.
We could see I was already slacking off. I'm sorry. Who made the motion on
I
that?
did.
Frank.
I second it.
And can we have some comment on it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Did you buy the dragon?
No.
You're going to donate the dragon
Alas,
to
I
the
did
event?
not, unfortunately. But there, I know they would still like to do an event with Pleasant Ridge to celebrate Reading Month.
It's
So
wine and roses, isn't it? Like the Spanish?
It's books and roses.
Maybe I was wishful thinking.
Wrong
Easy with the wine.
You're still bartending.
We can make it that way.
Anyway,
so they do still want to do an event with Pleasant Ridge, and so that will be, hopefully we can still have something to celebrate Reading Month with. The Huntington Woods Library and Ferndale Library together.
are we going to get a fire-breathing raccoon?
Possibly, we shall see, but we will let you know as soon as possible.
May we take a vote?
Yes. Commissioner Rubino.
Yes.
Commissioner Bushy.
Yes.
Commissioner Krzyjak.
Yes.
Commissioner Perry.
Yes.
Mayor Costello.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is consideration of the following minutes. Public hearing and zoning board of appeals meeting held Tuesday, February 12, 2013, and public hearing and regular city commission meeting held Tuesday, February 12, 2013. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move the minutes for the public hearing and zoning board of appeals meeting held Tuesday, February 12, 2013, and the public hearing and a public regular city commission meeting held Tuesday, February 12, 2013 be approved as recommended.
Is there support?
Support.
Questions, comments, corrections? May we take a vote?
Commissioner Bushy.
Yes.
Commissioner Rubino.
Yes.
Commissioner Krzyjak.
Yes.
Commissioner Perry.
Yes.
Mayor Costello.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is the disbursement report. Who's doing that, Sherry?
Mr. Peterzak?
I can do it. For February 2013, accounts payable is $710,183.28, of which $178,046.47 was tax liabilities, and payroll for the month was $79,124.38.
Any questions? Is there a motion? To my left,
Mr.
to my
Mayor, I
right,
move the
somebody?
February disbursement report be approved as listed.
There's support?
Support.
May we take a vote?
Commissioner Bushy,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry,
Yes.
Commissioner Krzyjak,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubino,
Yes.
Mayor Costello.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is governmental reports. Anybody here from another governmental entity? Next item is city commission liaison reports, starting with planning commission DDA, Commissioner Bushy.
Well, you switched it up on me. Planning Commission, we had a master plan subcommittee was appointed, and Alex Linko and Martin Schlesinger were appointed to those committees. Also, there is a planning committee also set up for the budget study, and that will be Michael DeRozier, Ryan Stearns, and Sean O'Brien. The DDA has approved $5,000 to study the parking on Woodward Avenue, and they also appointed a subcommittee to work on that would be Mark Bolash, Greg Sweeney, Dave Laidlaw, and Kevin McCutcheon.
And the subcommittee for the master plan is just a coordination process, and the entire planning commission is involved?
Yes, both subcommittees. will report to the planning commission, and then the planning commission has the all authority to
Okay.
make the final recommendation to the city commission.
Before moving on to Commissioner Krzyjak, folks, there are a couple chairs if anybody wants to sit up here. Commissioner Krzyjak, Rec Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a review of some events and discussions held at the last Recreation Commission meeting. First of all, I'd like to, on behalf of myself and my daughter, thank everyone who's responsible for putting on the daddy-daughter dance. It was rock and roll 50s evening, and it was a great evening. So I thank everyone who made that event happen, including the man to my left here. It was a great evening, and many memories were made, including some great photos. So thank you for that. As far as what was discussed at the rec meeting, we had during public comments, we had 5 residents who spoke during public comments about their concerns regarding Gainesborough Park. We had Scott talk about the subcommittee for Gainesborough Park. I know Commissioner Walsh here tonight. Her and Diana, who's the other member of this advisory subcommittee, spoke about the progress there. So if you wanted to take this time to, not to put you on the spot.
But if you do, you have to come to the microphone.
Tell us who you are.
Who you are, where you live, and then
My name is Amanda Wall. I live at 27 Fairwood. You just want me to talk about the progress?
Well, I mean, if that's a later item, I didn't want to take too much here.
I don't want to take too much.
Yeah.
Do you want me to take some?
Just take some, I guess, would be appropriate here.
Okay. So we're just discussing, for those of you who don't know, we're just discussing park improvements. And the way this all started was the foundation was, in case you don't know, looking for a big project to support that people were behind. And we went to Sherry and asked what type of projects people, were wanting. And Sherry communicated there had been a survey, and that this was one of the things that people had expressed interest in from the East Side Park to be improved. So we're just in the infancy stages of discussing what that might look like and how we can beautify our park and improve our property values and make people happy.
thank you, man.
Thank you, Commissioner. Didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but I appreciate
fare
that.
well?
No, you fared very well. Then we had an agenda item to name appointments to the subcommittee working on the master plan, the recreation plan, as Commissioner Bushy had just discussed in the planning commission. We had a similar election in the recreation commission, and Commissioner Jay Foreman and Kevin Kelly were elected as our representatives, with Victor Fernari serving as alternate. So I think we have Commissioner Foreman here as well. So as far as events that are coming up, we have the pancake brunch and the Easter egg hunt, which is always a great time. It's scheduled for Saturday, March 23rd. Brunch will start at 10 a.m. and the egg hunt begins at 11:30 sharp. So make sure your kids are ready to go at 11:30.
Because it's
Sure.
over at 11:33.
We've been going for many years. It's something our family really looks forward to, and Mayor's correct. Those eggs get snatched up pretty quick. And so that's going to be at the community center. Like I said, it's always a great event, and there's no RSVP required for that event. Spring soccer will be starting soon. The games will begin in mid-April. Registration is closed as of right now, and all teams are full. So that's getting ready to kick off in mid-April. The 50-plus bingo night will be held Thursday, April 4th, with light refreshments served from 6:30 p.m. until 8 p.m. And that will be at the community center. Something generated out of the Recreation Commission is the appraisal fair. Last year we had a great time with that event, And this year, we're looking forward to building on that success from last year. This will be held on April 6th, 2013, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the community center. The way this worked last year was everyone was able to bring their items, antique items, collectibles, and we had experts on hand to look at your valuables and your antiques and help determine their worth, similar to what they do on the Antiques Roadshow. It's a lot of fun, and we look forward to having a great day on the 6th. I guess that's it. One thing, the community garden. Are we good on the May 4th kickoff date?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be opening that up May 4th for a kickoff date for the community garden. That's another great event. And if we could just get an update, I know we talked about it a little bit at the Recreation Commission meeting, but the Inside Out DIA program, do we have specifics on that right now, or?
I don't have any specifics other than that Bridget has been meeting with the DIA, and they're in the process of working out the logistics for that program.
Okay, but that we have been selected as a community for that
We have
program.
been selected, and I know that our assistant recreation director met with the representatives from DIA to choose locations,
Mhm.
and there are several events that are gonna be planned around that, including something that I think will be fun, and this year the Recreation Commission included a new class for photography, and that photographer will be involved with the Inside Out program and arrange some tours of those people who sign up for classes that would be interested in photographing those works of art. And I know she has some younger kids projects too, so we'll have more details soon. We're not in the spring selection, we're in the summer selection.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you, Sherry. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Committee liaison, Commissioner Perry.
School board member Amy Butters could not make it tonight, but she gave me some information about what's going on with the schools. The next Ferndale School Board meeting is going to be Monday, March 18th at 7 p.m. at the Harding Administrative Offices. The Sound of Music is going on over at Ferndale High School. The musical premieres on March 16th and will continue through the 24th. Scott, are there tickets available at the community center?
Yes, we do have some. They just dropped them off, I want to say on last Wednesday, I think.
Great. So there are tickets available there. They have nearly 100 students taking part in the cast, crew, and musical pit, which is such a great idea. I think what they've done an innovative idea of having a couple different casts and things so that they can involve more students, and so more students can have this really great experience. The FEF annual dinner and auction, which is the Ferndale Education Foundation, is having their Ides of March dinner on Friday, this Friday, March 15th. The FEF would like to extend an invitation to everyone to attend this dinner. Amy promises it's going to be a lot of fun, and it will help them reach their goal of $12,000 that helps fund projects for the students. They also, if you can't make the dinner on Friday, which the tickets are $40, they have raffle tickets for an opportunity to win $5,000 for $20 a ticket. And I think, do you have some of those tickets too, Scott?
I do not. All I have are
Dinner tickets?
the musical tickets.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll work on, we can get those, so if you would like a ticket, please email me at aperry@cityofpleasantridge.org, and we can get that to you right away. Ferndale, and this is for the commission and other people who are interested. The Roosevelt School is celebrating National Reading Month with an invitation to all the community leaders to come and read at Roosevelt this Friday. So it's a very memorable experience for the kids, and if you're able to share a special book with the kids, Friday, please, this Friday, please contact Principal Dina Rochelo, and I can get her email address to her, just email me again. But she's very flexible on timing. So if anyone would like to go read to the children, they'd really like that. And then the Ferndale Schools has an e-newsletter that is posted online that has just an amazing amount of information, and you can access it at theferndaleschools.org. Onto Complete Streets, which is part of the Woodward Avenue Action Association projects. Complete Streets is going to have a really great public outreach opportunity. It's called a charrette, and it is a 3-day design program where we don't have the specific times yet, but it's going to be June 10th, 11th, and 12th. I believe it'll be, the one that will be closest to our area will be right at probably the zoo. And you can go there. They have 8-hour days, and what they do is they really interact with the public, having people helping draw where the problem areas are, and show where they think different solutions could come and things like that, so that then their planners and architects can go back and put together some different ideas and plans. It's very hands-on. You go out and actually walk or bike with these guys so that they're experiencing, our crazy intersection right here. And we are grouped with, it's a great grouping with Huntington Woods, Royal Oak, and Berkeley, so that we're really dealing with this tough intersection. So on June 10th, 11th, and 12th, and I'll be keeping you updated on that, they will be doing this really great walkability and livability study. Now, if you can't make that, Ferndale, the Ferndale study is grouped with the northern edge of Detroit, so that they can deal with that 8-mile intersection and crossover. And that will be 3 days. It'll be June 10th, 11th, and 12th. Now, their charrette for the Complete Streets, which Complete Streets, what that means is that helps incorporate making it more walkable and more bikeable and just more accessible for people and not just cars on Woodward Avenue and all of the cross streets around here. But they are going to couple theirs with their transit public outreach. And so that would be a really great opportunity to go study that. So I'll keep you guys all updated on dates. And theirs is April 17th, 18th, and 19th. Where then our transit outreach will be where you can go in and give ideas for mass transit at, it's going to be at the Berkeley Community Center on April 25th at 5:30 to 7:30. And those have been really interesting because people get their questions answered about, what is bus rapid transit? What, is the chance of a light rail? And what kind of paths and routes they're going to be. And then that is it. Thank you.
Sorry.
After the phone call comes in, Commissioner Rubino, it's all yours for the Historical Commission.
Do you want me to answer the phone?
You can't find the off button.
Sorry.
No problem. Go ahead, Commissioner Rubino.
Okay, Historical Commission, the Home and Garden Tour is going to happen in June. Right now, the goal is for 6 homes and at least 2 gardens, and the commission is trying to have me talk my wife into a home and garden tour, so we'll see what happens with that. It won't be easy. Also, Brad Banyan, who is a very treasured member of our committee, had to resign because of work. I want to thank him personally, and I know the commission does too, for his outstanding work. He is extremely hard worker. He is an extremely valuable asset to the Historical Commission, but because of work, he can no longer be part of the commission. Hopefully in the future he'd be able to come back, and we're really going to miss him. We have a fall event coming up, but I'll give you more information of that as time goes on. But right now, the only thing going on is having the Home and Garden Tour, which is usually very, very successful. I think we had 200 or 300 people show up last year, and it was very much worth it. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
I just had a few questions for Commissioner Rubino. I was looking through the minutes for the February 5th meeting, and you talked about improvements to the Gainesboro Park sign, and I know we've talked about this briefly in our recreation meetings as far as what would be needed to rehab that sign or add additional signage down there. Could you speak on the discussion that the Historical Commission had regarding the sign?
Actually, we talked about not doing the sign, looking at the progress of the park as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And that spending money on the sign right now would not be of any value. And that we should look at the project that the city is looking forward to this coming year, if not fulfilled next year, of a complete design for the entire park. And that for us to spend any money right now on signage would be not in any good value to the city since there's gonna be an entire park improvement. Why would we put up a sign and then have to move it? So that's what we talked about.
Okay, thank you for that. And one other thing that piqued my interest, it was at the end when you were talking about, and I don't know how far this was developed, but it was mentioned, and I was just recalling through the minutes, was a potential donation of a van or something for seniors. Is that something that's advanced any, or?
No, I brought up that I thought it might be a good idea for the commission to work on maybe supporting the event of purchasing a van for the city.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I've discussed with Sherry, and it's something we'll discuss in the future. It was just an idea. And I know city manager and Fraser, we were able to get groups to support having a van that was utilized for the city, but there's a lot more to it than buying a van. There's also insurance, there's maintenance, there's how you earn somebody to take care of it, there's insurance, and there's a lot of aspects of it. All I did was bring it up as something in the future that hopefully we look into.
Well, I would just, the reason I brought it up is because I thought it was a very interesting idea, and it would be something that I would see as worthwhile as well, with consideration to the, factors as far as insurance and staffing that. But when I saw that, I thought, wow, it's a very good idea.
Yeah, I thought it was a good idea too, but we'll see in the future. The commission seemed very interested, but I needed more information for them, and I haven't supplied it yet.
What was it used for in Fraser?
I'll use it to take seniors on events or anybody that wanted to go. It was a 16-passenger van, and if they wanted to have a tour for that day, or if they wanted to go to see a show down in Detroit, or go to the zoo. Of course, we didn't have the ability; it wasn't right there. That the recreation department had. Actually, we purchased 2 vans, and we were able to ship 32 people at a time to go to different events. And it worked real well for the recreation program, because the recreation was able to now plan more events and more outings because they had now transportation without having to go out and rent buses and everything else.
And then you had an employee who drove those vans?
Yeah, actually what we did is we had employees that worked for the city that had their CDL, and they were able to work part-time as drivers when we needed them. So it worked real well. So I thought maybe it was something that we could do here, and I thought maybe the Historical Commission, and as I said, they were very much interested, but I just wanted to put it in for their comments to it, and if it worked out that they thought it was a good idea, I wanted to discuss it with Sherry and make sure the city was on board with it. And then hopefully in the future we can do something like this. I just thought it was a good idea.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next item is public discussion items not on the agenda. Okay. Out of retirement,
Mayor, Commission, yes, I'm out.
sitting on this side of the camera for a change.
Yes, it is very different. I have to admit, it's very different. Glad to be back, though. Thank you very much. I had my report. We didn't meet for the last 2-3 months, so it's just a little bit longer than usual. I'll just go through the items one at a time. For January, our tonnage for recyclables was 29.38. Usually it hovers around 20, 22. For February, it was 21.88 tons. Okay, that's one part. Yard waste pickup starts April 1st, coming up real soon. And as you know, I like to give a visual aid. I have a visual aid here for you. So compost pickup starts April 1st. Okay, you can put this on your compost bin. Compost. That's one visual aid. I know you're waiting for the other one.
It's not the same without Helene.
It's not the same. Electronic recycling. We've got a new company, well, Sacra has a new company coming in. It's called Vintage Tech. And it's possible that they would provide pickup here in our city if we wish to. We have to get together if we want to have this done in our city. We could put our electronics not at our curb, but closer to the house, and they will pick it up at the house. But it has to be arranged. So it's something for the future. We have to just talk about it. I think Scott and I could, and Sherry, work on that, if we want to have it done. Remember, Huntington Woods had a contest going. The prize was $100,000. They came in second.
Oh.
They just missed it. They were fairly close, and she was disappointed. Well, Claire was disappointed. And I'm sure the commission of Huntington Woods was disappointed too. But there's money in the streets, as like they say, gold is. The foreigners would say there's the streets are lined with gold.
Paved.
Paved with gold. Very good.
Way to throw him a bone.
But there is money in the street. Okay, Bin Blitz. The Bin Blitz is coming. We'll be having this on the bulletin boards at City Hall and at our front desk, which means the bin is going to be half price for the month of only April. Okay, so if you want to get a bin for half price, come $6 instead of $12. Okay. There may be a person coming from Sacra, Colette Ferris, should be coming to our office here at City Hall and at the Rec Department to give some ideas about encouraging more recycling. I have some myself, but she'll come in here with a different eye and see what she could come up with. So I'm anxious. I'm looking forward to see what she finds. Speaking of compost, I didn't get this in correct order, but there's free compost for. Let me start all over again. If you have a community garden, which we do, we can have free compost from Sacra. And if your church or if your business has a community garden, you could get free compost. All you have to do is get the okay from the city that you work or live in, and contact Sacra. And they will deliver free compost, so which is pretty good.
You have to be in a member community?
Yes, 12-member community. I went over to 4 Ridge, and I saw the Take It or Leave It book shelves. It's really great. I like the idea of take it or leave it. Well, I use the words take it or leave it, but I think it's called something else. What's it called?
A lending library.
A lending library.
Close.
But I like the idea.
Spirit.
And it seems like it's working out very well. And I think it's a great idea. Those books could have been tossed into the trash. They could have been. I don't like that. They could have been recycled, turned into other papers. But here we are having a book, or magazine, whatever, being reused. I like it. I have one at home right now. It was very easy. There is going to be a MRC conference, Michigan Recycling Conference in Saginaw coming up May 7th, 8th, and 9th, and I intend to go to one of those days. And I'll report what I learned from there. And maybe I'll bring my video camera, most likely I will, and record one of their events. Any questions?
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Any other items not on the agenda? Ted, actually, you come under governmental reports for the future, so that's when you used to do it when you were the camera guy.
Thanks.
Other items not on the agenda. Consideration of the consent agenda. Sherry.
Mayor, there's one item on the consent agenda this evening, and that is a resolution recognizing Earth Day, April 22nd, 2013. And my recommendation is that the consent agenda be approved.
Is there a motion?
Mayor, Your Honor, I move the consent agenda be approved as recommended.
Is there support?
Support.
We're going to take a vote.
Commissioner Perry,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubino,
Yes.
Commissioner Bushy,
Yes.
Commissioner Kuziak,
Yes.
Mayor Costelli.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is number 10, consideration of removing from the table the city's proposed human rights ordinance. Sherry.
Mayor, as you recall, last month this item was briefly discussed and a motion was made to table until a later date. And this item was placed on this month's agenda for consideration. The first step in the process of being able to discuss and consider this item is to remove it from the table.
Is there such a motion?
Mr. Mayor, since I was the one that made the motion to table, I'd like to make the motion to remove it. So, Mr. Mayor, I would move the city commission remove the proposed human rights ordinance from the table.
Is there support? Support. Here, take a vote.
Commissioner Rubino,
Yes.
Commissioner Bushy,
Yes.
Commissioner Kuziak,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry,
Yes.
Mayor Costelli.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is consideration of establishing a public hearing on Tuesday, April 9th, 2013, at 7:30 p.m. to solicit public comments on an ordinance to amend the Pleasant Ridge City Code by the creation of a new chapter, Chapter 43, Human Rights. Sherry.
Mayor and City Commission, at the last meeting, there was discussion again about about adopting a human rights ordinance. And as you know, this has been in the paper recently with the City of Royal Oak City Commission adopting last week. I did a review of some of the ordinances that have been adopted in some of our neighboring communities and as well as some around the state. And you have a memo on this item, the details, the purpose of it, and my recommendation, which includes adopting. There was some, when I forwarded this, the proposed ordinance to your attention, there were a few comments, and I think those were addressed by the city attorney. The one area that, and I'm gonna pass this out because it is the latest version, the one area that was, I think, changed, the most recent change had to do with the statute of limitations as to when someone can report an incident. And it was interesting that we have the next item on the agenda, which is the Title VI federal regulations for discrimination. And so this current version includes a time frame of 180 days, which is similar to the one that was in the Title VI plan. I originally, I think in my first version, had a 30-day and then a 60-day, and really there are some ordinances out there that have no provisions, and there are some that have a year, and I think there is one that has a 6 month. So this is really something I think that the City Commission is going to want to talk about. The
Could I interrupt you for a second,
Yes, you
Sherry?
can, yes.
In addition to the 180 days, it also borrows from the federal guidelines that if somebody couldn't reasonably discover the unlawful discrimination within the 180-day period, there's a 60-day period after discovery to still report.
Right, so the time, it wouldn't start until after the 60 days, the time. This was an interesting process, and the research was interesting too. The model that you have, the ordinance is modeled after the one that was originally written by or recommended by Michigan Equality. And that's a group some of you may remember some 10 years ago about, that did a good job promoting this to some of the local communities when Huntington Woods adopted. I think Ferndale adopted about that time in Ann Arbor. Really, the purpose and why it's out there is, although there are state and federal protections against many of the classes that are mentioned in the ordinances and are mentioned in the state and federal law, there is no language that protects gay, lesbian, transgender individuals against discrimination. And that really was the purpose of getting local governments to adopt such an ordinance. So the language in our ordinance that's being proposed, because this is a little bit different too than others, I think as years went on, more and more were added. But it's on the basis that the person's race, color, religion, sex, age, height or weight, marital status, sexual orientation, familial status, national origin, or physical or mental disability. Those are the protected classes in the ordinance, in addition to the ones covered by state and federal. So my recommendation is the first step required in adopting an ordinance is to establish a public hearing, and that's the item of action on the agenda this evening, and that's that a public hearing be established for April.
And then under this draft, Sherry, an aggrieved person would report to the city manager, and then what's the process after that?
Well, the generally speaking, any complaint, and certainly it would apply under here, you're under this ordinance. The complaint is received in writing, and reviewed with the city attorney, and then steps are taken, whatever would be appropriate at that time.
And then if a complaint is prosecuted, it goes to the district court, $500 fine plus the cost of investigation and prosecution.
Right, that person would be responsible for up to $500 and certainly for the cost of the investigation and court costs.
And then this deals with discrimination in housing, employment, public accommodation, and what am I missing? I'm missing one.
Those are exceptions, occupational qualification exemption, the private
No, but
education.
it's, I'm not dealing with the exemptions, but it's discrimination in employment, housing,
Yes.
public access, and I'm missing one.
Public services.
Religion?
No.
I think it's under purpose, Your Honor, Mayor. Right in front.
Employment, housing, public accommodations, and public services, yeah, okay. Discussion,
Mayor,
yes.
if I could. First of all, I'd like to, I guess, apologize for what I will admit was perhaps a clumsy introduction of this topic. I learned a lot last month as far as introduction of these ordinances or proposed ordinances. I didn't want what happened at last month's meeting to jeopardize any progress that we as a governing body could make on this issue. So I appreciate, this governing body making a commitment to, bring this forward. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate that. I guess as far as where we go from here, my concern last month was kind of getting the ball rolling. I feel this is a significant ball to get rolling, and one that we should be confident every step of the way on the process towards adoption. I know I had conversed with Sherry today via email as far as the process, and understanding that there's a proposed motion tonight. I would like to hear the commission discuss possibly introducing this item, this ordinance tonight, reviewing it, amending it as need be over the course of the next month, and then in April, taking the next step to schedule a hearing once we are confident on the language, because as well of a job as, and I commend our city manager for assembling this ordinance, there are still some things that I think need further discussion, and I think over the course of the month between the five of us and the help of our city manager, we could come to a consensus in April, and then schedule a hearing for May, and then I would like to vote on this not on the evening of a public hearing, because my experience with public hearings are that you give the opportunity to the public to speak on the issue, and then immediately we're asked as a elected body to vote on that issue. What I would like to see is have a public hearing, receive comment from the public, be able to digest that into what we ultimately decide, and then at the next commission meeting, having a vote on adoption. So the timeline for discussion that I would like to introduce is have this introduced this evening on reflection, and so we can discuss its merits and its where it's lacking, or maybe we feel it's lacking, maybe we feel it's strong, and then next month scheduling a hearing for May, and then independent of the May hearing in June, vote on adoption. And I'd be interested in hearing everyone's opinions on that timeline.
I would never recommend putting a matter like this on a June agenda, because the June agenda is tied up largely with budget. If you want to suggest a July agenda or thereafter, but the only thing I'm joining issue with is June. June is pretty busy with adopting the budget, setting taxes, water rates and that type of thing. So I expect that will already be a very long night, and then typically in the ensuing months we don't have much on our plate.
Okay.
Other comments?
I just have a question, Jason.
Mhm.
When you first brought this ordinance forward, I was very curious of why.
Mhm.
Because I found that Pleasant Ridge, and not that I'm against this ordinance, but not because I supported you on it.
Mhm.
But is there something going on, or of some event that happened in our city that we don't know about? Because I have talked to residents, and a couple of residents have asked me why we're doing this, and I said it's because we want to have a protection for people who are discriminated against, and they said we've never had an issue in our city. In fact, I think that's the reason I love the city so much, because they're open to everybody. They even accept Italians, and so I was able to come here. So I mean,
I'm only half Italian. That's all I got.
so it bothered me that because you were very upset at the last meeting because we didn't rush into this, and what bothered me most is why. I mean, I thought maybe you knew something that I didn't or somebody else didn't, where somebody was discriminated against. So I'm very curious. So why was there a big push for this? Because I know in the past there's other commissioners who were openly gay, and they said we don't need it here in Pleasant Ridge, because to me a person's a person. I don't care about their gender, I don't care about their religion, I don't care about their sexual preference. I don't really care about any of that, because as long as they're a nice person, they're a nice person. I mean, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So I was just curious why we're really pushing this when we have a city that's open to everybody, and I've never seen a city such as this.
Yeah.
So I was just curious why.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. I think it's a question that I dealt with in January and even before formulating, my own position on this, because as I stated in January, I concur with you 100%. This is the most welcoming, accepting community that I've ever lived in, ever. And so I echo your sentiments 100%. I guess I look at it, this is how I look at it, is that this ordinance should be a reflection of those values to the entire world. One of the things that I've came across in researching this issue, I've tried to do that, is the Human Rights Commission does a point scoring of various communities throughout the country, and it's something that gay and lesbian, transgender groups look to when maybe they're deciding on business opportunities, when they're deciding on where to live, where to raise their families. And when I first came across that webpage, I was stunned. I was literally stunned to see the score that they're a third party, they're scoring our community, and the way they score our community is not on these sentiments about inclusion, because I agree, like you said, there's not a more inclusive community that I know of, and that's one of the reasons I feel comfortable raising my family here. But this third party had scored our community, and we scored a 3 out of a possible 100 points on inclusionary policies at the city level. And I felt that was a disservice to our community to say to the broader national gay and lesbian, transgender community that somebody who perhaps got a job at GM downtown or CompuWare or something, fresh out of college somewhere, a gay student or a lesbian student who was thinking of relocating, picking up and relocating to this area, they would look at Pleasant Ridge and have no notice and no understanding of what everyone in this room understands, but just have this score of 3 out of 100 as far as gay and lesbian inclusion in our community. And I thought that was a really disservice to who we are as a community here at Pleasant Ridge. So I felt the first steps to improving that score was adoption of a inclusive human rights ordinance to declare to the world where Pleasant Ridge is on this issue. And I think that is the role of government, to take a community at the local level especially, and through its governing body, establish policies that dictate to the world who we are as a people. And I feel very comfortable that an ordinance of this nature will declare to everyone who's interested where Pleasant Ridge stands on this issue. And on a personal level, it's very encouraging to go out and talk to people who have those same sentiments. Because I know, regardless of what the law says, or whatever law we come up with or don't come up with or whatever, I know that the sentiments of the people in this community will not change. What this is a declaration to everyone of who we are as a people. And not only is it symbolic, but it is important because, as Sherry mentioned, a lesbian couple could be denied service at any of our businesses in the city, and there couldn't be legal recourse. Am I correct in saying that, Sherry?
You are, if the discrimination was based on their sexual orientation.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct. And an employer of any one of our fine businesses, could say, I'm not going to hire gay people to work at my whatever. And that's perfectly legal within the city of Pleasant Ridge unless we adopt this ordinance that says it's not okay, it's not all right, and it's against the law. And that's why I feel it's important.
Mayor Costelli?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me just finish my conversation if you don't mind. The other thing that bothered
Yes,
me.
Frank.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It was a conversation.
I
I'm
know.
sorry, Mr. Mayor. The thing that bothered me a little bit is that every time government decides to make more laws and rules for a community, they become more controlling. That was the only thing that bothered me a little bit. The other thing is, I was curious of why you wanted to do this. I was curious about what event led to this, because if there is some discrimination, I certainly would want to know about it. But I also believe that passing a law to say to the world that we don't discriminate is saying we're doing it because of the law instead of doing it because we're just that kind of people. And that's the only reason that I'm questioning this, because I would rather people think that we're a community that's open to everybody without any rules or regulations telling us we have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We do it because that's the way we believe.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only reason I questioned it. As far
Corollary,
as supporting it, I'm
the
sorry.
corollary then, and Commissioner Perry, might also be that they might think that there was a problem and we had to address the problem by adopting the ordinance.
That was my point of bringing it up, because if there is a problem, we don't want that in our community. Absolutely not. I'm definitely going to support this, but I just was curious why, and I just don't like local government or even government making so many rules that every time you turn around there's a rule against it or for it. I mean, it bothers me when we decide all these rules and regulations for our community. If you're worried about the perception based on this one thing you read, people can write whatever they want to write. It's what reality is, and the reality of our community is it's open-minded and it loves everybody, except people that are breaking our houses and stuff like that.
Right.
We love everybody, and we accept everybody for who they are. In fact, one of our citizens, who's been here for like 50 years when we first moved in, was very concerned because they were Jewish and they figured they wouldn't be accepted. And they were so astounded the way they were accepted in our community. And I thought that's the way it should be, and that's the reason I care about it. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Perry.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Rubino, I actually have had that same question asked to me, and so I have written down an answer that I am very comfortable with. Where, when I was asked that question the other day, I thought about it, and I'm like, I don't know of any circumstances of discrimination in our city. And I love that this is a thoughtful city that naturally embraces an inclusive culture. However, that doesn't mean that Pleasant Ridge cannot benefit from a human rights ordinance. In keeping with our diverse community, this ordinance is about making sure all people in Pleasant Ridge are treated fairly and equally under the law, which is important. And of giving the same equal rights to every citizen that it lives here or works here or plays here. And more importantly, it is an open public statement that our city welcomes everyone, including businesses seeking an environment where diversity thrives. Now, on the State of Michigan website, there is a study where they studied that, and they find that there is negative economic impact when a community allows discrimination against the LGBT community in Michigan. And what this does is it's sort of like a positive statement towards, a proactive statement towards a DDA plan or something like that, where you are setting up good policy, good public policy for your city. And that's why I really support this. I think they're, beyond just supporting, obviously, all of our, that everyone should be treated equally, it's also just very good public policy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think that the draft ordinance that Sherry prepared and presented to us seems to accomplish those goals. So I guess what I don't understand is what other items there are to consider discussing between now and having a public hearing on this ordinance to gather public input on it. Because just because we have a public hearing doesn't mean that ends up being the ordinance that is adopted. And it may very well be that we get together and we tweak it and we find out that the public doesn't care about our tweaks, or they come up with something that we didn't think of.
So then what is the process? I'm sorry, Mayor. Because I know
The
there were.
process would be,
Yeah.
the normal process would be to schedule this for a public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
The ordinance would be published. Public hearing would be held at the scheduled date to gather input from the public.
Mm-hmm.
At which point in time, there can either be a vote or not a vote. And at that point in time, minor changes could be made. Most notably typographical errors, very minor tweaks. Maybe the city attorney says, whoops, there's something that doesn't conform to our numbering of the code or some such thing. But a major item, such as dropping a protected class,
Mhm.
or drastically changing the procedure for complaints,
Mm-hmm.
could not be made, could not be adopted that night. It
Okay.
would be it would require that the draft be rewritten, another public hearing be held, and the ordinance couldn't be adopted until after that subsequent public hearing. And again, subject to those same rules, if there's that subsequent public hearing and there are major changes, again, it can't be adopted until another public hearing itself. So I think really, from what I'm hearing at the table, the additional groups that are sought to be protected, that everybody seems to, I believe, agree ought to be protected by this ordinance are. And it would be appropriate to schedule a public hearing to gather input from the public as to whether in fact that's the case.
And will we be able to make a couple adjustments before the public hearing? I would love to look into, and it sounds like you did some interesting work, finding the limitations action, like the, what is it called? I'm sorry.
Statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations,
Mhm.
thank you. And then also, a couple, classes that I did not find were covered was the, and you and I talked about it a little bit, pregnancy and HIV status. And, just if those should be called out as a separate item.
Well, I will tell you that I will mirror what the mayor just said. If you schedule a public hearing this evening, it is a public hearing to consider the ordinance that you have before you. Those would be considered substantive changes.
Okay.
So you could not go into a public hearing with a different version of the ordinance than what's before you tonight. Cause this is the one that would be published.
I guess that's my reasoning for taking this ordinance, which I agree covers a lot of what we're talking about, with some tweaks that I would like to see. I mean, one thing I think that Royal Oak does that is interesting is in lieu of violations or penalties, they have a conciliation agreement. That is a wordy section as far as alternatives to a fine, as far as getting parties together to facilitate understanding. I think that has some interest for me as far as exploring if that would be appropriate for this community. I know there's some exemptions that other communities have spelled out. Things like separate bathrooms, right? Obviously, we have an interest in maintaining separate bathrooms, right, between the sexes, right? That's spelled out, I think, in the Royal Oak ordinance as far as exemptions, stuff like that. So there is lengthy, and that's just an example. There's exemptions that are spelled out in Royal Oak's ordinance. The violation and the fines and the penalty section. What was the original draft that was sent out last Tuesday, and then the draft that was sent out with our packets on Friday, and now the version that we have, the violations and fines and penalties section has shrunk, right, from what it was a week ago to what it is now.
Well, it's the same sentence, it's just different times, and the version I had before had
Mhm.
my comments underneath.
I understand that, but the violations section,
No,
I know we talked about civil
That's
infractions versus misdemeanors, and how you were unable, as us as a city, we're unable to classify this as a misdemeanor, correct?
well, this, right, from the original version to
Right.
this version, this has been the same though, from right after the first version went out to you.
Did it change from, so 43-7, the violations and fines, it didn't change from per incident to,
That was Royal Oak.
No,
oh, okay, that was
Right.
just there.
Royal Oak was per day.
Per day.
So if you had $500 per day, if you had somebody who came forward and said that 6 months ago I was denied the ability to rent this house, then that would be 180 days of violation times $500. That would be a lot of money.
Yeah. So, which I think that's a good point, and I'm sure a judge or however that moves forward would be able to sort of say, okay, we're not gonna charge them $500 a day, but if there is a circumstance where things keep happening, like if someone goes into a business in town and they are denied every day the
Those are
service.
probably each separate incidents. Those are separate incidents.
You write a ticket every day.
Or if, okay, I guess I wanna look into that personally a little bit more, cause it seems like if like someone's being denied rental or some sort of a service or something, but I understand though, that's a good point, that it could be a separate incident each time.
If you wanna make a statement, if you wanna score points on whatever web page, if you wanna get the base document done, you can get the base document done, and if at a later date we find that we have no complaints, then our penalties are probably fine. If we find that we all of a sudden have 1,000 complaints and the facts are really egregious, there's nothing that stops us at a later date to prospectively amend the ordinance to impose more exposure for its violation.
That's great.
Everything I've heard from other communities is they adopt it, they put it on the books, and they never think about it again because it's more a statement than something that they really think they're going to enforce. And quite frankly, if we get into having to enforce this a lot, you'll find me being first in line to say let's increase the exposure because it's it's a drain on the city's coffers to be enforcing this. It's not the person who is denied service who's hiring a lawyer to sue somebody. We're not creating a civil cause of action. I don't think we can create a civil cause of action. This is our police department and our city attorney being involved in enforcing this.
Sure. And I certainly hope you understand this has nothing to do with just scoring on a website. This is very much about that this is updating, I think this is very good public policy, and this is very much what our city is about. I think it is nice to see that people are paying attention and measuring these things, I think, from a larger collective to try and help people gauge some policy actions they can take as a city.
Yeah, and Mayor, I mean, I would just second Commissioner Sperry. I mean, this is not an attempt to rack up points. That was introduced as an example to Commissioner Rubino as far as.
Well, it was one of the things you brought up, and
Exactly.
I believed it was a serious thing.
It
you
is
brought
very
up.
serious, so I would appreciate, you giving it the levity that I've given it, because it seems that, the intention of just saying, oh, well, we're just trying to score points on a website seemed to me like denigrating the importance of the issue.
It was the first example you gave, but I'm not denigrating the issue.
Okay.
This would accomplish that objective. I have no problem with HIV status. I think that pregnancy is probably pretty well, at least in most of the situations here, already covered by the sex discrimination statutes on the books. Certainly in employment. Whenever I've had a client who's discriminated against somebody for being pregnant, they usually were on the wrong end of a lawsuit.
Thank you.
So, just to move this along, I mean, if the big complaint is that we're not, I thought we were,
HIV was in the Royal Oak version. It's not.
oh, okay, that's where I'm sorry, okay.
Mayor, if I may, are you referring to section 43-4, the actual prohibition, where it lists the protected classes?
Yeah, in the Royal Oak ordinance, there
Yes.
was actual or perceived
Yes,
status as having HIV.
yes, I had that.
And I don't believe there were any exemptions that tied to that.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know that, I don't have any strong feelings about pregnancy, but I think pregnancy is pretty well already covered by state and federal law.
So to move this along, can I put 43-4 and put add into there, or?
Where is 43? I think that we would need to put in the 43-4 HIV status, and then Sherry would need to add in
Definition or?
definitions what that is.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So maybe after sexual orientation before familial status, put HIV. Is it HIV status? Is that the right terminology? Let's put that in for the time being,
Yeah,
and then
I'll verify it.
Between
and then you
four,
can
five, or
verify.
five and six.
It is HIV status, Mayor.
Okay. And then do you have the Royal Oak ordinance there?
I do.
Do they have a definition in there that we could read into the record and you could then have typed in?
HIV status, the physical condition of a person who has or has been diagnosed as having been infected with the human immunodeficiency virus, whether or not that person has or has been diagnosed as having acquired immunodeficiency syndrome or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome related complex. That is the definition of HIV status.
So now,
With the adding of the reference to HIV status after sexual orientation before familial status in prohibition, and then adding the definition of HIV status where it would alphabetically fit in 43-3. Are we close enough to schedule a public hearing?
I think we're close. I think we have some members of the audience who may have, I
That's the
would be,
purpose of a public hearing.
okay. So I would, but I know that they know more than I do on a couple aspects of this, and so my other big question is possibly like is just the, limitation of action. And, so I'd be interested in hearing more feedback from other people who have studied this.
What were the range of times you found, Sherry?
I found
None from Royal Oak.
1 year, none from Royal Oak. And I did talk to their city attorney because the language his opinion that I provided you last week, he didn't feel it was necessary to put it in there because that's what they're relying on. But he felt like either way it's fine. And I don't remember who had what. I'm sure it was Huntington Woods that had a year.
So
Commissioner Perry, I just think that, if somebody feels strongly that they've been discriminated against, they ought to come forward. And I think that the extra time on the discovery aspect of it really is where your concern would be most, as far as having enough time. If somebody doesn't discover that they were discriminated against until a year after the fact, they still have 60 days. Assuming that they couldn't have reasonably figured it out, but they still have 60 days after that period of time.
Okay. And, yeah, and I think, and actually addressing, I don't feel any big rush that this has to be done by April or May or June or July. So I'm very comfortable like moving this forward now, so that if it does take, the steps take longer,
They take longer,
yeah,
and then we get it right.
yeah. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a motion
Yeah, with those two amendments,
with those
you
amendments?
will schedule a public hearing. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I move the public hearing be scheduled on Tuesday, April 29th, 2013 at 7:30 p.m.
Excuse me, 9, you said 29.
I'm sorry, you're right. 9 at 7:30 p.m. to solicit public comments and propose amendment to the Pleasant Ridge City Code for the creation of a new city chapter 43 human rights.
Is there support?
Support.
May we take a vote? May we take a vote?
Commissioner Bushy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rubino?
Yes.
Commissioner Krzyjak?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Mayor Costelli?
Yes, motion carries. Next item is consideration of the resolution regarding the City of Pleasant Ridge Title VI Non-Discrimination Plan. Sherry, this has got to be the most laborious document you've ever made me read through.
This document,
And probably the most
Imagine-
laborious document you ever drafted.
imagine having to work on this document. I received a notice about, it was in January, late January, from, an agent from an agent with the federal government, and she explained that communities are required. There was a notice that came first from MDOT about if you are not in compliance with MDOT's requirement for a non-discrimination plan, on record, you are no longer qualified to receive state funds. And so I said, no problem, send over the information, we'll take care of it, and, you saw it, and after she sent the information, it was interesting, she called twice and said, have you had a chance to look at this yet? And then when I looked at it, I saw why she was so concerned. But I'm very proud to tell you that Pleasant Ridge is one of the first in the state to file the document, and this was handed over to Mr. Pierzak promptly, and I know that he worked with the representatives from MDOT to get this completed, but this certainly was an absolute burden until it was done. It was a hard job. And so, Scott, if you want to explain a little bit what it is about.
Sure. The Title VI plan is basically to ensure that no person or group of people on the basis of race, color, or national origin is subjected to discrimination in the level and quality of city contracts or services. So it really is looking at when we have a contract out there that we might be working with MDOT or receiving any kind of state or federal funds, they really want you to have this plan ready to go and implement it. And the big portion of the plan right now is what they call LEP, which is limited English proficiency. So you have to be able to communicate with people that may speak less than, I think the words they use is less than well English, which doesn't really seem like it's proper, but that's what they said that they use. So we have we were able to fall under an exemption more or less, because we only have from the census only 1.2% of the people in Pleasant Ridge on the census mark that they speak less English than proficient.
Less than very well.
That's what
Less
states
than very
are,
well.
less than very well.
Yeah, less than very well. So we have our LEP plan included right in our Title VI discrimination plan, and the Title VI plan gets into things from the Civil Rights Act, originally passed in 1964, and it's been changed over the years with presidential executive orders.
Now, whichever group it is that it says that we're gonna call to get on the phone interpretation, is that a state agency or what is that?
Yeah, they have a list in a program that they give you of companies or services that you can call that are able to communicate with them, and I believe they use computers now to be able to communicate with the person. There's I want to say I think there's 33 different languages that are part of the plan, and there's actually, I was telling I think Commissioner Krzyjak and Commissioner Perry earlier that there's a sheet of paper that they provide you that if the person does not speak English, you hand them the piece of paper and they find their language on the paper and point to it so you know what language that they speak if they happen to come in the office. So if they call you on the phone, then you have to get the service on the phone, and they can figure out what language they're speaking if you're not able to readily identify it.
And then the pleasure you get for having MDOT give you this pleasure of developing this plan is you get to tell all of our contractors, here, you have to have this addendum, develop your plan.
Right, and the good thing about only having being under that percentage, a certain percentage, is that we would only have to provide a contract in another language if somebody requests it. If your percentage is over a certain number, then you have to produce it no matter what. So the good news is that we've never had anybody request another language in one of our contracts, or we've never had any of these problems so far. But it is nice to have a plan on file that we can follow in case it does happen.
Comes up. Other questions?
Yes,
Commissioner Krzyjak.
yes, Mayor. Thank you. The mayor just mentioned contractors. Would they fall under the subrecipients category?
The subrecipient is actually, what page are you on?
Are we a
page 5.
subrecipient, Scott?
We are actually the subrecipient.
Right.
But
Now,
we're-
if we
we're
disperse,
required to, in certain contracts anyway, have an addendum per this.
Yeah,
plan.
and that's included in the plan, the one that, it would be on page 28, Appendix A, to be inserted in all federal aid contracts.
Right.
So you can see there's, that's 2 pages, pages 28 and 29 would be what you'd have to insert in any federal aid contracts.
so we're not talking contractors as people who we contract to do the streets, or people we contract to do the garbage pickup. Are those subrecipients?
No, we're the subrecipients,
Right.
they'd be the contractor, so.
Right, now-
If it's
But it
a,
has to be a federal aid
it
project.
has to be a federal aid
Which the
project.
garbage
where
wouldn't be.
Where you put it, the
Correct.
garbage wouldn't be,
But roads may.
road,
Mike.
Well,
well,
probably
use federal
not in
money.
Pleasant Ridge
yeah,
because
we don't have any
we're
state.
Okay.
federal.
Right.
Alright.
It would
So-
be if we were possibly partnering with MDOT on a project,
Mhm.
we may have to.
So none of our contractors would have to have these included in a agreement?
Yeah, as of right now,
Not
we
across
don't,
the board.
we don't have any across the board, no.
Okay, alright. Thank you.
But if we were to receive property from MDOT, as we did once before, the Wellesley parking lot, that would impact that, and that's where you had all the language about covenants running with the land and the like would be attached to the deed.
Okay.
So there are things that have happened in the past, not likely to happen in the future, but could happen in the future, that would trigger this.
Okay.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the resolution regarding the City of Pleasant Ridge Title VI non-discrimination plan be approved as recommended.
Is there support?
Support.
Can we take a vote?
Commissioner Rubino,
Yes.
Commissioner Bushy,
Yes.
Commissioner Krzyjak,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry,
Yes.
Mayor Costelli.
Yes, motion carries. Good job.
Thank you.
That was something else.
It really was a great job.
There's the file, please.
Next item is consideration of the certification of delinquent utility bills for collection on the 2013 summer tax roll. Who's got this one?
Mayor, I'm gonna invite the city's water clerk to present this item, Karen Humphries.
Mayor and City Commission, before you, there's a list of properties, at least 48 properties that are delinquent past due 6 months or more. And by city code, it states that we can take this amount and place it on their summer tax bill for the upcoming year. The amounts range as little from $25 all the way up to $800, and the total amount is just over $6,300.
And this is a normal process that we've done every year for
Yes.
as long as I can remember?
Yep, we take the amounts that are past due as of March 1st, and if they're not paid before May 1st, they are rolled onto their summer taxes.
Questions?
Yes, is it is it 2 months or 2 quarters?
They have to be at least 2 months, but most of these are 6 months or more.
Okay.
If they're less than 2 months past due, we cannot roll them to the taxes.
Pardon me?
If they're less than 2 months
Okay.
less past due, we can't roll it to the taxes.
Okay.
But these in front of you are 6 months or more.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
really old.
Yeah.
2
Are you,
quarters.
are you saying 6 months, 2 billings?
That's 2 quarters, yes.
Okay, and they're 2 months past the 2 billings?
No, that would be if they were within the last 2 months past due, meaning the current billing cycle. We could not roll it to the
Oh, I
next
see. In
taxes.
other words, once you get the second billing, you have, if they're 2 months past that second billing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move that the properties in the city with unpaid water and sewer charges for a period of at least 2 quarters, as certified by the city's water department, be placed on the 2013 summer tax roll as a special assessment.
Is there support?
Support.
Can we take a vote?
Commissioner Perry,
Yeah.
Commissioner Bushy,
Yes.
Commissioner Krzyjak,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubino,
Yes.
Mayor Costelli.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is consideration of the update regarding the Gainsborough Park Improvement Project. Scott, is that you?
Actually, Mayor,
This will be
that's
Sherry.
me.
Oh, I guessed and I guessed wrong.
Right. We talked a little bit last month about the concept for improvements at Gainsborough Park. And there was quite a discussion. Since that time, I think there have been numerous discussions. And there is a committee that met. And I thought I had clear direction after last month's meeting as to how to proceed, but apparently I was wrong. And this evening, in addition to an update, I guess I'm looking for direction for sure, clear direction on whether or not this project should move forward or how the city would like to address this. I have invited, as you requested, Mr. John Icoangeli from Beckett and Rader. He is our planning consultant, economic development coordinator, and wears many hats, has been a great asset to this community in many areas. And I would ask that John address this because he has been involved not only from the start of this project, but he has been involved in conversations over the last 20 years about improvements to Gainsborough Park.
John?
Mayor and City Commission, pleasure to be here as always. Try to summarize what I think is the status of the Gainsborough project in terms of relationship with where the Parks and Recreation master plan is heading. Over the last 20 years that I've been working with the city, the city has done several surveys in terms of judging community input relative to project development and getting direction. That didn't include the budget survey that you did about 2 years ago when you had a specific survey that was done. to take a look at budget priorities, where he asked the communities what services they would like and what services they thought they could do without. All of those surveys included some components relative to recreation, and really before, I think it was around 2006, 2007, before the economy took a dip, the Parks and Recreation Commission had started working on a master plan for Gainsborough Park, completed the master plan based on information that they've received over the years and comments on from the surveys, and then basically kind of put it on the shelf because of the way the economic conditions were, not only for the country but for the state and city. And then about 3 or 4 months ago, the idea of taking a look at Gainsborough Park as the project in terms of kind of reinventing it and rejuvenizing it came up. And it came up at the same time that the Community Foundation had asked the city manager to give an idea of a couple of projects maybe they could get involved in terms of fundraising and fund development. And those projects involved, Sherry and I went and made a presentation in the foundation. We presented to them improvements that the Downtown Development Authority was looking at for the Woodward Avenue and Sylvan intersection, which is a pretty critical intersection for pedestrian safety. And we had presented at that time the 2007 Gainsborough project, which had a variety, pretty much is a menu of just about every passive active recreation activity you think of. Walking trails, community gardens, picnic pavilions, restrooms, you name it, they had it in there. A winter ice skating rink. Primarily because the community only has 2 really community parks. It has a lot of parks. It has the Greenbelt, which is very passive and pretty much a buffer for Woodward Avenue for the properties on the west side. But you have 2 community parks. One is the active park, which is the community center in the Fort Ridge complex, which is the indoor facility, which has the fitness center and has the pool, which is very active, obviously, in the summertime. And then you have your passive park, community park, which is Gainsborough, which has been used over the years for t-ball, soccer practice, whatever, okay? And so the park has got its own issues. It's bifurcated by the DPW facility. You got Flynn Field. A lot of people don't know where Flynn Field's at. They think it's part of Gainsborough. You got connectivity issues because of the way the road was set up originally and the sidewalk. So there was a real need, at least 5-6 years ago, by the Recreation Commission to really have a master plan of what the park would envision in the future. So when they made expenditures, like Commissioner Rubino was saying, it wouldn't be removed 5 years later because another idea or another project came about. The way this is dovetailing today, and I know that there's concern, community, some of the residents in the neighborhood are concerned about the park, is that it's being dovetailed really with the update of the 5-year Parks and Recreation Plan, which is actually, the last one was done in 2006, 2007, so we're actually a little bit out of date. But the city has not been in a position where they wanted to go after DNR grants. We are now. So we're doing a 5-year recreation plan update, and there's a committee that is working on that, which includes people from the Rec Commission, people from the Planning Commission, and some of the other junior commissions. The way this would work, at least on paper, is that we will be having, probably within the next month or sooner, we're hoping to time it with the Ridger, is we're going to go back out with a community survey, a recreation survey, which will be internet-based. The reason why we're going to try internet-based this time is because usually when I meet with the junior commissions, half the people that are sitting at the dais are doing texting and doing email as they're also trying to conduct the meeting. So I know that people are pretty much plugged in Pleasant Ridge.
I think the budget one was at least
Optional
internet-based.
internet as well. So I think we're going to try the internet survey, which is very economical for the city. Does the tabulations automatically. Does a lot of cross tabulation. So it's going to be done by a third-party website provider. And at the same time that we're doing the survey, we'll be doing an inventory of all the facilities, because part of the DNR process requires that there has to be a field review of each of the parks in terms of compliance with ADA and universal access. Okay. So we go through and we take a look at each of the park facilities. And we're thinking by the time this all gets done, the survey results come back in. And the survey results will give the committee, give the city commission, give the planning commission information regarding what the community's preferences are for recreation activity. And those then can get plugged into the Gainsborough Master Plan Committee, the group that's been working on the plan, to make any refinements that they need to the master plan. And then as part of the public input process, the plans both for Gainsborough or any of the other park facilities that we do conceptual designs for, which we have done in the past, they would be subject to we'd have an open house, which would be publicly noticed, for people to come in and look at the plans and talk with the rec commission and talk with the consultants that worked on the plans regarding what they think are good things or bad things about the plan, so they can give us the feedback that we need to go back and make the refinements. Now, this is a process that we've used in the past, and in Pleasant Ridge, we never have a problem getting people to come out and give their opinions. So, I mean, it's just something that we've done over the years, and it's worked out very well. And the other part of this is that the community is sophisticated enough that we get more information talking one-on-one or in groups of 2 or 3 people than we do at a formal DNR required public hearing where people are supposed to review the plan and then get up in front of a microphone and give us their 2 cents. So we find that the open house is a little bit better way to engage it because it's more hands-on. And then once that's done, then we'll prepare an action program that's also specific for all of the parks, for Ridge, Stevenson, Memorial Park, and Gainsborough. And all that comes back here to the city commission, where you have to have your formal public hearing to certify the plan for DNR. So I mean, that's how we're dovetailing this together. So there's a lot of different avenues that'll be available for the public to input into the process, as there always has been. Survey, open house, formal public hearing, as we go through. So that's kind of how we're doing it. Any questions?
Go ahead.
I may have one.
Sorry.
Who does the park, I know you work for a lot of firms, do you have a park planner in your firm that does the conceptual drawing once you obtain all this information? So I mean, this isn't done by,
No, it's done by the landscape architects in the office that work.
and they're
park.
specifically educated in
Right, they're-
process and park
yes.
planning and park
Park
design?
planning, and we have people on staff that are risk managed, they have gone through risk management with playground development,
ADA.
ADA and universal design. Our firm does a significant amount of work with DNR on all their state facilities relative to ADA and universal design facilities. So,
Thank you.
Costelli. Through this past month, after we started talking about this last month, and I was asking if we can have a survey. I started talking to some other people who are sort of who are in city planning in other cities and things like that, and we started talking about, just like the plan that they're gonna do for Complete Streets, doing a charrette, a design charrette, which is basically like a design workshop for residents, where they can come in and really have input from an early stage. And because Gainsborough Park is such a wonderful asset to the community, and it is such an extension of all of our backyards, and such a it's an important amenity that this broad green space. Because I've seen the master plan from 2006, and I've seen the I don't know what's it called, the conceptual master Parks and Rec plan.
The conceptual plan, yes. Have you seen that?
I have.
The big one?
I have.
Yes.
And my concern with the big one is that we lose. I mean, we're in the middle of such so much chaos and so of a city, of very much urban areas, that we lose so much green space with something like the conceptual plan, that it becomes so much about parking lots and another community center and what was it, a ice skating rink / roller rink, and more courts and stuff, that we start, and some kind of a pavilion. I don't know, I know amphitheater is now not the proper word, but my concern is that kind of a build out what the residents would really want as their for where we want to go. And I would hope that the residents could be involved from the onset versus once there are plans out there and then everybody's like, well, we've done these lovely plans, this is, you know, what's wrong with these? You know, so I'm afraid there'll be a pushback if we get too far down the road with planning, not knowing what the general, who we are as a city with what we believe those parks to be, from the city perspective, from the residents' perspective. Because, you know, I don't have children, but I know that the families with kids are down there all the time. And what an asset and how useful it is to them. And I'm concerned, just with different drawings I've seen and everything, how much green we lose.
John, what would be the difference between your open house and what Commissioner Perry is describing as a design charrette?
A lot of money. That would be one. I mean, if you want to do a design charrette, like you're talking for Woodward Avenue, they're doing that under the auspices of the National Charrette Institute.
Yep.
Okay, the minimum amount of time is 3 days, 12 hours a day. Okay, the maximum, the one that they typically prefer for the types of projects that, you know, we're doing on Woodward Avenue should take 5 days. Okay, and that's fairly intensive. And now that is not, I think there's a misnomer with the charrette process. Residents get involved in the charrette process in terms of identifying things that are positive and negative, things that they like or they don't like. They don't really draw the concepts. Those are done by the designer. So
Right.
when you go through the charrette process for the intersection, there's going to be tables that are filled with architects and landscape architects that are going to do the drawing, interpreting what residents say are the pros and the cons. Okay? That's what a survey does too. The Gainsborough Park, the reason why it was filled with everything that you've mentioned was because over the years various surveys have come back and they have wanted those type of activities for the families. You have the community center and you have the pool, but you don't really have a robust playground for kids, and that was something that came out. People wanted walking paths and trails. People wanted community gardens. People wanted winter activities, which they don't have here in the community. That's the reason why the Recreation Commission back in 2007 thought, why not put in a small refrigerated ice skating, which other communities have. I know, but these were responses to input that was given by the community. And input that the Recreation Commission at that time had garnered from their discussions with the community. And they said, this is the program that we want. You guys figure out how to lay it out. And that's the same thing with the charrette process. Identify the program, you give it to the design professionals, they know what all the dimensions are, they try to squeeze it in and fit it in so it looks good and it functions well. Now, if the survey comes back where all the community wants is Gainsborough Park as one open lawn area, then that's probably what would happen. Okay?
And, you know, and from what I was hearing about a charrette is that it could be tailored, where it can be, you know, because we're also talking about a specific area. Because I know the Gainsborough Park thing sounds like, from what I'm gleaning, is that it is almost two projects. We have a specific special group that is helping figure out what is going in Gainsborough right now. Like, but then there's the broader plan that's going to be considered in the master plan, and that will consider all the way from Gainsborough Park, from Kensington all the way down through Flynn Field.
Well, it's also going to include maybe improvements to Four Ridge,
Uh-huh.
Stevenson,
Oh,
Memorial,
sure, because it's the
Hessel
master
Park.
plan. But
Because
when
it's a
I'm talking
master
about this area, the East Side Park area, and but my understanding is there's going to be a earlier section of Gainsborough that we want to consider and try and take action on soon. Is that right?
The
But-
way I presented it, the way John and I both discussed this, was that this is not a project that would be completed in a 1-year time frame. This is a project that would hopefully be phases that would continue, but yes, there would have to be a beginning point, and this would be the beginning point.
So I guess my question is, because it also sounds like that there's probably sort of a repurposing that we're looking at maybe for this park, like that it's going away from being just like this play area that's open, you know, open green space, and then also, you know, with some playscapes, to being changed to more, you know, I had heard something at one point where it's more of, instead of for like the families right there, it's more for the whole city.
Absolutely, it is. The idea of all improvements to any park in the city would be with the mindset that this is for the betterment of the city as a whole and would meet the needs and requirements and requests of the residents of the city. It would not be an East Side Park.
Well, and I don't consider it now an East Side Park.
Right, I
That was
don't
the
either.
comment I had gotten from somebody else.
Yeah,
That
that's-
they were like taking it away from being a play park that does serve families to being something, you know, for their play and recreation, to being something that's more of a, not a play park. Not, you know, a lot of the free green space is gone and a lot more, you know, parking lots are put in and things like that to serve for, periodic events versus.
I have not seen, and there has not been developed an actual plan.
Okay.
I don't think this is a repurpose of the plan of the park. I think this is still recreational activity, and the pavilion, amphitheater, whatever it's decided to be called, would absolutely be it's located in the area of the passive park. So it's
And
not
again,
like
to give it a proper terminology, it's a picnic pavilion
it's
terminology.
a picnic pavilion.
Based on the
So-
survey, right?
Well, and so I think
Okay.
what
You
could
wanna
be.
come up and talk to the microphone?
Yes, yes.
The megaphone?
Or whatever you wanna call it?
Excuse me, Kurt Metzger, 28 Sylvan. We're just trying to clarify, we just heard about a survey that's going to be conducted. And if the community says they want a green space for activities, that's what it'll be, the green space. Now we're talking about something else that has nothing, where does this fit into this survey? How can we even be talking about an amphitheater or whatever this thing is when we haven't even had the survey and we don't even know what the community wants?
Well, as John had indicated, there have been many surveys done over the years.
Yes, but there's been a lot of changes in the population in
That may
Pleasant
very well
Ridge.
be, and nothing's been built yet, but all I was pointing out is it's not a pavilion in the sense of another pine knob.
No, well, we
It's a-
understand
It's a
that, but
proposed picnic
but
pavilion.
what I'm asking is, where does the picnic pavilion fit into the idea of a survey? And if a survey says we don't want a picnic pavilion, how do we get a picnic pavilion?
You don't.
You don't?
Okay, that's what I'm just clarifying.
I thought that was very clear with John, the process. that we
No,
were-
no, because all of a sudden we're
Well, no, we
talking
didn't.
about something,
And I understand.
no, I'm just
But
talking
no,
about
no.
timing, right?
And I understand, but I mean, there's been a lot of, and I don't know where it started, and I really don't care where it started.
Right.
Okay, the bottom line is, you just heard the process, and I think that is probably the most fair process to go through. And I think anybody in this room would say that we are going as far out as much public comment as we can get. This decision is gonna go through a survey, which I committed to the last city commission meeting I had, and I firmly agree that nothing should be done to the park until we have a community survey done. And that the survey's done, you have your subcommittees getting together, you have then meeting with the planner, come up with a conceptual drawing for what the park should be from the residents of this community, and then that is submitted as a public hearing, or as he called it, a info gathering type meeting, and then it comes to the city commission, which is once again another public hearing.
No, my
There's
confusion,
the process, I'm sorry.
I thought that process was terrific, and
Okay.
I'm fully behind the process.
What?
All of a sudden, we started talking about all of
That's
a
not-
sudden, there was some discussion in this corner.
And I understand that, but I
Right,
mean, this is all
okay.
this rumors, and sure,
Well,
there is a there was
I
a
just-
plan that was done in '97, and it was all the horns and whistles, and
No,
I saw it in
I've seen it too.
2007, and it's not anything other than something that's came up in '97. We're in now 2013, the process has changed. John has come up with a process, I commit to it, I don't think there's anybody on this city
No.
commission that does not commit to that process.
Great, that's what I'd
So,
like-
I mean,
that's
I
what
think
I'd like
whatever
to hear,
rumors
that-
are going in
Sherry.
this community.
I'm just looking for clarification that
Sherry.
that process is
Sherry.
indeed what is gonna
Sherry.
happen.
Yes, if I can address that question, because Commissioner Perry and I were discussing about the specific project that this subcommittee has been working on. The idea, and where I lost clarification on the direction, the idea is that there is a subcommittee that continues to work on some kind of conceptual plan, the first phase of a concept that would be eventually implemented or not, who knows? But in order for residents to see an idea, to visualize what the city is talking about and you know, what the project would eventually look like, you have to have a plan. The distinction of what we're talking about tonight is, do you wanna stop and halt all conversations, which is I think what I asked last month. Should we stop and halt all conversations, meetings, plans now and wait until a later date to pick up that conversation? Or do we do this as John outlined, all of these things happen simultaneously? That's the question.
Commissioner Levine?
Well, to echo something that Commissioner Bushy said, there's been too many false comments made. What I agree with is that we go through a process exactly like Mr. Acobelli just said tonight, and that's what we've been looking at. I think the mistake that was made is that a plan was given or looked at just to give an idea of what the past was and what they looked at for the park based on the services at that time, and it was taken and said, this is what they're going to build, this is what they're doing. That's not true, and it was taken out of context. What's happening is that, first of all, there's going to be, as John said, we're going to do a survey, get people's input, then have meetings with residents, then do a conceptual design, and then we go from there. So we're getting ahead of ourselves, and everybody's talking about what we're going to do and the city's going to do this. That's not true. We're not doing that. I'm not going to support a building there that we don't even know for sure what people want. I mean, that's, excuse me just 1 second. So I think that it's taken out of context. This print has been given around to people, and it was a conceptual design. It's not what's going to happen. And it was called all kinds of different names rather than just a picnic pavilion. It's not going to be a large complex taking up the whole park. I don't want to see green space going away, but I also want to see something that kids can enjoy. You have a beautiful area there, and why not build some things that all the neighborhood kids and adults can enjoy on a regular basis, not just in the summertime, but year round. So please follow what Mr. Ecoangeli.
Boom,
No.
boom, boom. Mike, I think you had your hand up too?
Hi, my name's Kathy Cook, and I'm at 83 Wellesley, so of course this is a big concern to me because that's right in my backyard, as
totally
you all know.
understand that.
Okay, and I remember being at a meeting years ago when one of you gentlemen was concerned because you didn't like the noise from the motorcycle group leaving on Wednesday.
that was,
So-
that was
a little
Commissioner
different.
Lachey. He left town.
Okay. Well, he left town, exactly,
Yeah,
right?
on his motorcycle.
I've been here for 26 years.
On his motorcycle.
I've been here a long time. My daughter played many years in that park, as I still do, and have many events at that park. Okay, now my concern is, yes, probably all this because there was a big plan laid out there, and it was taking a lot of green space up.
Yes.
And plus, whoever designed that plan, I'm sorry, but they didn't think it thoroughly at all. Number one, there's a railroad track going right there, so any music event is truly affected, as well as the sunset going down right in people's eyes if they were going to go with that direction. Also, since I am at that park every day and see it in my backyard, already affected by the lights that are there that were just added in my bedroom window now every night, because it's safety for the park to have those bright lights there. Also, the other thing was that kids play in that park. Not just your young kids, but adult kids. There's activities going on in that park you guys aren't aware of, okay? And if you put another structure up there that's hidden behind a scene and not right out the end, like right now there's a big structure at the end of the park where people can use it for bathrooms and for events, which I've used before. The rent, hardly anyone uses it right now, okay? But if they had made it maybe better, maybe someone will rent it. And besides me, I think I'm the one that used it the most. Okay, but if you put structures up there, kids will draw on them. They'll use them. They'll do drugs in them. This is what happens with structures. We turn the garbage cans over. We take care of that park. We do a lot that you guys don't realize to make that park better. And so putting trees up, fixing that fence, doing that wonderful stuff, I'm all for it. Making places the kids can play again, that's great. But bring in the music. There's hardly anybody that goes to those things anyway. And when they do come up over there, then just bring out one of those events in and play it like you do now. Play the rental things. That's fine. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you. To the back, and then Mr. Spencer.
Thank you, Jim Breckman. I'm 138 Maple Field. I just want to maybe throw in a few comments, suggestions on the process. I think it is true that a charrette, in the technical sense of a charrette, as it's defined, by the Institute, certainly don't need that. That would be a huge waste here. I mean, that's a process for a bigger area, a more complex area. But I think the point is that, when we talk about doing a survey, surveys are good at a high level. But, when we try to prioritize and come up with a specific park plan based on a survey, you lose a lot because people can't visualize. Some people can, most can't, unless you're experienced with this. And there's opportunity costs. You might say like, oh, I want this improvement, I want that. That sounds good, but there's a finite amount of space, and translating the improvement to the amount of space we have in Gainsborough Park is a very, very difficult exercise. And I think a survey is good for the citywide, broad level, high prioritization. When we're talking about a specific park plan, we need to have a process that can actually allow people to see what the trade-offs are. If we do this, that means that all of the green space is gone. Or, what is our primary function for the park? And we really need a process earlier where we're not bringing a plan to the people, but where the people are helping us develop the plan. You can think of public participation with various levels. The lowest level is inform, where we've got a plan, here it is. Then you have, consult, where you bring it to the plan, can we have your comments? That's a typical open house process. Then you've got collaborate and empower. Empower is basically where you say, here, you guys decide and tell us what you want to do. I think we need to get somewhere in between consult and collaborate here. And that's why I think the design workshop, I call it a design workshop. Have a 4-hour event, hold it at Gainsborough Park. The weather's going to turn nice, get a tent, and actually do the design workshop process there. We are fortunate that our consultants are very good and have very good professionals on staff. Bring a couple of designers out so we can actually sketch out some of these ideas with people. And then that forms the basis for the plan. Do the survey first, get the survey results back. But the great thing is, at the end of the day, you'll have an 80% done plan if you do the process right. And it's just 4 hours. It's taking that open house and turning it more into a design workshop. So put the right steps in place. And it's a great way then, you've got community buy-in right off the bat. And you don't have to bring a plan and have people give you comments, and then we have a subcommittee that goes back and makes changes or not. Let's do this right. And actually, I think in the end it could end up being a quicker process. So let's use the right tools. I don't think a survey is the right tool to actually get to a plan that works. And we've got all of these accumulated flotsam and jetsam for these plans we've done for years.
Not the right tool may not be the term you meant, not the only tool? Because I think you said use a survey first.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you said it's not the right tool. It should not be the only tool.
Should not be the only tool.
Okay.
Yes, that's probably more accurate. Okay. But I wouldn't rely on it solely. And let's clear the decks. We've got a lot of plans that were done decades and before the reality of the world changed 4 or 5 years ago. Throw them out. Let's start over fresh right now. We've got different people who agree. So let's do it right. So that would be my suggestion for how we would structure the process. That's how I'd structure the process.
Thank you for your suggestion.
Frank?
Frank Stutcher, 85 Amherst. I'm not here to pick on what's going there, what's not going there. He explained it perfectly. I understand completely. I'm 100% behind that. This gentleman was great. That's the way we gotta go, because the only thing I was really concerned about with this is public involvement. The survey to entire city, somebody from Maplefield may not ever go over to Gainsborough, but yet they fill out the survey. You understand what I mean? The people who are going to use the park, that's the people we really want to get there. And so by having this little discussion that he's talking about, you'd get those people there. The people who are really going to use the park. I think what happens is, it sounds insulting, but we're not using a whole lot of common sense.
You're right, that is insulting.
But it's also true. The worst part about it is it's true. Now, I'm not here to talk about the future.
Opinions. Nothing.
Yours.
Yeah, you're too buddy.
Are you through?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll continue then. My point here is not necessarily a year from now, 2 years from now. I'm sure this is going to be all handled very finely. Yesterday, I had my son go out and take some pictures of Gainsborough and tennis courts and so forth. Because I know we had this survey many years ago, and I know it wasn't done, but nothing was done until this last year, where we're starting to get some waste paper baskets put up, and we're getting maybe grills repaired. We got a drinking fountain finally. That's great. Meanwhile, today, or yesterday, we took the pictures. The young man from Brillar was sitting over there in his truck idling. And lo and behold, a half an hour later, that truck backed up. What I could see out my window were 2 Christmas trees that were loaded into the back of the truck, 2 big plastic bags that were loaded into the back of the truck, a tire that was loaded into the back of the truck, and some other, which I couldn't identify, which was then taken into the DPW yard, and I guess that's where it is now. So my point is, this is what I mean by common sense. We've got city employees that are there all the time. Everybody doesn't go to dead-end streets down there. We understand that. But we're down there. And we have to look at this stuff all the time. And why we have people who work mowing lawns, shoveling snow and all, why can't they see the crooked sign on the tennis courts, so that you gotta turn your head to read it? Why can't they see one basket, which we finally have, but we got a pole sticking up there with no basket or no backboard on it? We got that. When was it? Around last November somewhere, we had a windstorm that blew down trees. The tree fell on the tennis court. Fortunately, within a week, the tree was taken away. The fence is still broken there, has not been repaired. Those grills that were supposed to be bad 5 or 6 years ago, they're still bad, and they're still not working. So all I want to know is, while this is great for a year, 2 years down the line, what about now, today? All I'm asking is, and I'm not condemning you people, I wish you'd pass on to your workers, maybe they could be a little more observant. Just, notice the roses. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Do you want me to respond?
If you want to.
I would just say that I was
Sherry, before you
respectfully-
start, I want to say that I'm not going to be calling you every day for problems.
I don't expect you to.
Very good.
And I really, I don't have a response.
I understand.
Really, other than to say, I would respectfully disagree with you saying that only people east of Woodward Avenue should participate in a survey.
I never said that.
Should participate in a survey related to improvements at
I never
Gainsborough
said that.
Park.
I never said that.
I thought that's what you said.
No, I did not.
That we should have the
No, I never
input
said that.
someone on Maplefield may not ever visit the park, and so therefore, what they would have to say about an improvement project would not be as important as what maybe you would have to say. Isn't that, did I
Isn't that
interpret that?
common sense, that if they
No,
never go there, they wouldn't?
No, I disagree, Mr.
Oh,
Stutzer,
okay.
and here's
All right.
why.
Very
I
good.
think when we went through the process of building a pool in a community center,
Mhm.
it was a citywide process.
That's right.
Because that is a major feature, component, activity, recreational opportunity
I was
for
vice
all
president of the
the
pool board for a
community,
while, so I'm very
all
familiar
of
with
the
it.
people who live there. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said I was vice president of the pool board right at the end of the contract, and I'm very familiar
Well,
with the
the
building.
pool board disbanded. This was a
I
city
understand that.
project.
I understand what you're saying.
And so I think that the process for any major project that affects this entire community, and I don't like to think, I never have thought or talked in the terms of east and west. I would never, ever recommend that the city commission weigh anyone's opinion or perspective greater than anyone else in this community.
May I ask one question?
That's the only thing I would respond to.
Come back
what
to the
you said.
microphone if you would, please, Frank.
Just one of those.
Can you come back to the microphone, Frank?
What specifically do you disagree with what I said?
I think that the person that lives on Maplefield and what they feel about a park improvement project is every bit as valuable
that-
and important as what you have to say.
Okay.
I do not think of the city
will
as
agree
being
with you.
bifurcated
I
by
will agree
Woodward
with you.
Avenue.
I will agree. I happen to feel that the people who are closer will use it more, but that's
I
irrelevant.
don't think that's true with the pool.
I don't see where,
Well,
well, you know what?
Frank,
I've never been to the pool.
Frank, but
Not since- not since-
you've helped pay for the pool. And that person on Maplefield at the
And I
picnic
voted for it.
pavilion, at the picnic
I
pavilion
understand
is
that.
built, which is a big
Why
expensive.
are we off on side? That's not my major issue.
Well, that's what you
That was the
said.
first thing you
That was the
mentioned.
first
That was the
thing you
first
said.
thing. But what was I was talking about today. What are we doing today about this area?
Well, other than that, what I took from what you had to say was that the contracted employees do very little work,
I did.
and maybe the city could talk to them about noticing a crooked
Noticing
sign
what?
on the tennis courts.
And maybe
I
this-
will address that because that is an issue that the city manager will address. And
But should
because-
you have to?
Absolutely, that's part of my job.
All right.
The employees work directly under my administration.
Well, they have no leeway to work on, decide on their own what to do. If they see something on the ground, they can't pick it up.
Absolutely they do, but I'm talking about the area of whether
All
their
right.
quality of work is
We're beating a
good
dead
enough.
horse here.
That's an issue I would address.
In the back. Well, let's bring it back to the table.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Spatafor. I live at 51 Amherst, and I just wanted to clarify something that I think the gentleman said about the survey. Did you say it was going to be an online only survey?
We normally have paper copies at City Hall.
Okay, because I just wanted to urge
Yeah.
that be, because I think that's excluding, people who would not do a survey online, and I really encourage that there be both opportunities so that we get as much input as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, one last thing. You get to be the last guy.
Hi, I'm James Hanks. I've participated in constructing online surveys, and something you need to be very mindful of is that there may be more than one person in a house who's eligible to answer, and sometimes those surveys are set up to recognize only one IP address. So it's really important that we are mindful of the way the technology is designed so everybody's represented in their response. Thank you.
Did you give your address?
Oh, it's 22 Ridge. Thanks.
Back to the table.
John did one.
John, did you have a final word?
It was more of just a quick comment. My concern is that.
To the microphone, John.
My concern with the online surveys, I understand your issue with the IP address, and that's how we set them up. But my issue is today, two people household may have 4 different electronic devices that all access the internet, so I'm more concerned about households over surveying than under surveying at this point in time. Okay?
But we're doing both though, right?
But we're doing both. We'll have paper copies at City Hall.
Good.
But people, okay. My concern with just paper copies at City Hall is, personally knowing my mother does not live here, but my mother would not be able to do an online survey. I guess I don't know the
I
answer.
presume they'll be at 4 Ridge as well.
Your Honor, the last time we did a community survey, we had a 64% return rate.
But I think it was mailed to us then too, from what I recall, because
we had both.
I lost
Yes.
my mailed one.
It was mailed. It was mailed.
It's gonna be in the Bridger also, am I right?
The survey that we're looking at is about 10 pages, so it would be costly to mail that kind of. And we're happy at City Hall to drop one off.
Okay.
So that if anyone were to call, one of the employees will bring it to you.
Commissioner Krzyjak, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. One thing I would want to concern myself with at this stage is the process and not kind of get lost in amphitheater, pavilion, hockey rink, golf simulator. I think that's stuff that is down the line, potentially not, but during this survey process and the community involvement, things will emerge, preferred uses will emerge, and I think we should all take our cues from those things. I would like to echo what Mr. Stutcher said and what Mr. Bruckman said as far as how the process can roll out. I appreciate everything Mr. Eichelangeli has said as far as laying out, the survey, the master plan, dovetailing into a vision for the parks in the city and specifically for Gainsborough. And so I have interest in pursuing that avenue. But I also think there's an opportunity for innovation here where what Mr. Stutcher's talking about, what Mr. Bruckman's talking about, and I love this scale that he set up as far as inform, consult, collaborate, empower. I would prefer to push that down into empower, collaborate. I know that could get messy, and I know there's a lot more effort in harnessing some of that empowerment from the community. But I think ultimately we'll get much better buy-in from the community as a whole if they do feel empowered, they do feel they're collaborating, and not just being informed about what's going on. So I think the challenge to us, to Sherry, is to find ways, and you've highlighted many ways we can do that. I do have interest in what Commissioner Perry's referring to as a charrette. I'm concerned about the cost. I would not want it to be, a 3-day event with, enormous involvement from Sherry or Scott or anybody. But I think the concept of taking that open house and tweaking it a little bit so it does become more of a workshop opportunity for community involvement. I have interest in incorporating that into the plan. And then, of course, once we've kind of established a direction and a preference for the plan, then down the road having an open house where we've then we can display the results of the community preferences. So I have I have interest in what Mr. Eichelangeli is saying as far as that process, but I also have interest in what was stated as far as opportunities for empowerment from the residents, and I don't see any reason why we can't incorporate that into the plan.
Does that include putting the Playmakers project on hold as well?
Well, I think that deserves some consideration. I mean, I feel somewhat. I don't want to take.
How about conflicted?
Well, I don't want to take responsibility for this because what happened with the whole Playmakers thing was really targeted towards a small section of Gainsborough. We were really the amount of the equipment that we were looking to install at Gainsborough was under $5,000. We were talking about a swing-like object and a climber object. Really minimal impact on the scope of Gainsborough and actually addressing a need for 5 and unders to play it and to utilize Gainsborough. So that was kind of the initial thing. It had, and I'm not saying it necessarily grew from the Playmakers thing, but this conversation now is a separate conversation. So if the Playmakers are a part of what the city prefers or would like to see there, I would applaud that and I would encourage that. If the city finds, well, we don't really need the Playmakers equipment at Gainsborough, we don't, 5-year-olds don't really need play equipment. 5 and under.
Come on.
I'm just suggesting if something's going to be on hold, maybe everything should be on hold.
Right.
I'm fine with that. I'm not saying we go down.
Making sure I understand.
Totally. I am not advocating for let's go establish the Playmakers project and push that to push the broader Gainsborough Park improvements down the road. I would like to see an all-encompassing plan for Gainsborough developed with everybody in the community contributing. And if they support, the play opportunities for the little kids, if they support, the picnic pavilion, or if they support the green space, whatever, I, as a commissioner, that excites me. And the opportunity down the road 3 or 4 years or 2 years or however long it takes for us to all be down there, all interested parties, everybody feels like they contributed, and we have this great grand opening. To me, well,
I'm not laughing at you. Commissioner Perry and I are laughing at the same time.
Yes.
We won't tell you what it is.
No.
okay. But that is what I would deem as a success, is if at the end of this whole process, everybody's excited about it, everybody's down there, no matter where they live or their, you know, whatever their preferences were, they felt like at least they had an opportunity to weigh in, and then we all celebrate this new Gainesboro Park. That's what I would love to see happen.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I kind of thought that's the direction we were going in. Okay, is it not? I mean, other than tweaking it a little bit for suggestion from the gentleman in the back, and didn't catch his last name, for having a conceptual walkthrough with the architects and have people look at it. I mean, that's basically the path we're on, is it not, Jason? Or am I missing something?
I'll tell you my concerns, and we can address my concerns.
No.
And
Yeah.
Sherry, I've exchanged emails with her on this. I think she has done a fantastic job. She's a go-getter as an individual. It's undeniable. And she has taken this on her back and pushed this. And that's her role as a city manager, right? To push this. The assignment of these committees, the committee that was assigned to specifically look at Gainesboro Park, my opinion is that that's too limiting. That group should be expanded, and anybody who wants to participate should be able to participate. That's my opinion. I understand, you know, there's a necessity if we're going to push this project forward, you know, that, you know, sometimes efficiency doesn't allow for that broader voice. That is what concerns me. So when you say, yes, we're all on board with improving Gainesboro, I just want to see opportunities at the initial level for the community to weigh in.
Mayor, can I address that?
Please.
The original, I did not push this project. This project, an idea was brought to me, already in the works was the Playmaker concept idea, a $30,000 to $40,000 project, not a $5,000 project. When the foundation came and said, hey, we want to spend a lot of money, I said, can we commit some money over several years? You know, I've told this story. As has been successful in the past, I usually draw committees from junior commissions. They're residents. So you refer to the people that are, and I've worked with committees from 2 people to 35 people. Enhancement Master Plan Committee was an absolute beast for a while. But it can be done. It's not as manageable, but it can be done. I draw from these commissions because they represent different sections of the city, different views of the city, different ages of the city. I think they bring to the table a unique perspective. If there's someone in particular that you would think should sit, for example, on a committee, and not necessarily that committee, it is just a simple, hey, have you thought about maybe this person, or this person said to me that they would like to. But these are volunteers. Is there anyone on that park committee that you would even object to? Absolutely not. I know that. I mean, they represent the rec commission, the historical, the planning. They represent every sector of the city. You know, it's the product that comes out of these committees, besides the energy and enthusiasm, is incredible. And I try to always involve at least a city commissioner, just because they can be represented on those committees. But if the system of appointing subcommittees is flawed, then I guess I need to know that too.
Well, I guess my concern, and why I raised it in a few emails, and we're talking about it here freely, is that I know Amanda, Diana, I know there's Sean O'Brien, my neighbor, you know, these are all incredible people, and they love this community, and they want nothing but good things for Gainesboro. I know that about every one of them. But I know Sean O'Brien, but just for an example, I'll throw Sean O'Brien out here.
Yeah.
he paints his door orange. And not to give away where Brian lives, but maybe Sean is very, I know his personality.
Human rights ordinance.
Orange doors. But I know Sean. And he's got a great personality. He's got a great mind, and he's got a great.
He's creative.
He's very creative.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. So I know he's going to come up with a certain design or a certain preference that maybe the general population may feel, maybe that's not for us. So I guess my concern in assigning these smaller subcommittees is not the makeup of these people, because I don't question their intentions or what. I think they're all very talented and very dedicated to this community. I guess what I'm talking about is what we talked about earlier as far as empowering the grander community. And I'd hate to have Amanda and Diana and Sean and everyone on this subcommittee, right, spend 3 months or 4 months of very dedicated hard work, right, meetings on their own time, they're volunteers, right, so they come up with this plan that in their subgroup they think is fabulous, but when it comes back to the larger group, maybe they're not that receptive.
Okay, let's just take this particular committee, and let's take Diana, or let's take Amanda, and we are all volunteers. I say we are all volunteers.
Yes.
And they do not design a park project. Residents in Pleasant Ridge, in most communities, they don't design a project. That's why you use professionals. So let's say Amanda leaves that committee. She goes to the foundation meeting next in a couple weeks, and she tells them and shares with them. That's probably 15 more people, and those 15 more people tell other people. That's why there's so much already conversation, this is how word gets out. And then you have someone like Diana, and she goes to the Recreation Commission, and she shares what has happened at this little subcommittee that I've been meeting with, and then there's questions and feedback. The use of junior commissions, these volunteers, you know this just from working with them. It's invaluable. This is what makes this city work. Just about every person in this city is a volunteer. And if they don't volunteer, if you ask them, the answer is going to be yes. I know that from 25 years of service. But I understand that the importance of making everyone feel empowered and part of it. This isn't a new idea here. We've had major projects. A $2.5 million project was probably the most recent, but even the road projects. We hold informational meetings with the residents there because they're not part of the design, but they're certainly part of the process. So I'm just a little concerned that maybe your idea of what these committees, subcommittees do is something different than what actually happens.
Well,
These are really productive.
Exactly, but I guess what would alleviate my concerns is that, okay, they report back just as they did at our last meeting, right? We had a report back. You guys gave a brief overview of what they had discussed,
Exactly.
right? So when they come to our to the Junior Recreation Commission, and they explain, hey, this is what we talked about at our subcommittee, and the broader Recreation Commission with public who would want to, if public wants to show up for that meeting, public would be able to comment as well as to what they talked about in their subcommittee. And if everybody in the room was like, yeah, that's an awesome idea, that's brought back to the subcommittee, and they reevaluate in their subcommittee maybe what was talked about. Also, if when it's talked about at the broader Recreation Commission, people are like, nah, I don't know that. I don't like that orange color, Sean. That will go back to the subcommittee when they meet, and they will take that under consideration and be, hey, we cannot, this isn't really going where we want it to go. We need to reevaluate that. If I have those assurances that input is going to be part of the process, I'm more comfortable with the subcommittees. If the subcommittees are, just acting independently, then I'm more concerned. So those are my concerns.
Independently.
Okay.
They are acting as members of their respective groups. They are encouraged, as with every subcommittee, is to go back, share the details with your group. A classic example was at our last park committee meeting. there was conversation with a city commissioner and one of the members of this group. And the conversation, I asked 3 times, would you please repeat that? Are you sure you're reporting it correctly? Because that feedback from one of you was critical to whether or not we would continue to meet. I mean, it was that important. And, you know, subsequently, I'm sure as you know, there was some confusion. So, yes, be assured that anything, any kind of feedback that these volunteers receive from neighbors, friends, or even from their respective junior commissions, it is brought back to that smaller group and addressed.
Mr. Perry had her hand up first.
Yep.
Then Bushy, then Rubino.
So, I guess there's one thing I want to say first, and then we'll get into that. First of all, I do want to state again, as I stated last month, of how happy I am that we are discussing Gainsborough Park, because Gainsborough Park has been something that residents have, from day one, have been discussing with me of their concerns of maintaining it and upgrading it, and because people love it, and it is used just as, you know, these guys have stated, just on a daily basis, and people love it. Sure, it could be better and updated, but people do love that park. And so I like the idea of, you know, not everybody can volunteer, just because we know how everybody's work schedules are. And so, you know, they may not be able to be part of a subcommittee or part of a different commission. But that's why I love this idea of the design workshop, where, you know, it's people, you know, and what I believe Mr. Stusher was saying is the people who are most interested in Gainsborough Park. I don't care if they live on on Maple Field, or if they live, you know, right next door. The people who are most interested are probably going to get there to a design type workshop and give some input, and then have, you know, an ability to visually look at this stuff. You know, I think spending, you know, people were saying that, you know, this could be expensive. Well, we're talking about very expensive projects, and we do not, you know, I know no one in this room would want us to go down a path of a project that a few years later is absolutely not important, needed, cared about. And, you know, and that's why I think, you know, spending this time and, you know, maybe some money up front will really pay off in the long run. You know, I think it's great that, you know, there's some, we're feeling some, we want to do this quickly. I think is you know, if that seems like something that people are really interested in, I think we can still, you know, achieve things like these design workshops and still be able to, you could break ground on something, you know, this summer and complete it. I mean, it depends on what it is, but I think our residents are so smart that when you get these people together, you're going to get smart consensus. It's not going to be all these different, you know, you'll have some cohesion that comes out of this that I think could be really interesting. And it is something that
Commissioner Penny, any idea of breaking ground this summer, even on a fast track thing, is not realistic. Especially if you're gonna go through all these design workshop things before you have the planners do anything. If you're talking about these design workshops and starting from a bare piece of ground, then you're talking about breaking ground some year.
Okay.
And if that's acceptable, you know, that may be acceptable, but you're talking about it some year. And right now we have the foundation very interested in funding the project. I don't know how interested they may be after this meeting. I don't know how long that interest will be put on hold, if it's put on hold to other projects, but the idea of it being this summer, under even the fastest track circumstances, is not likely to happen.
Okay, then I've received then misinformation from people, whatever. Okay, I don't know what your timing is then on the project. So I will leave the timing issue out of it, but I will say that all the, you know, Pleasant Ridge residents are smart and they like to be engaged in these processes. And, you know, I want it to be something we can all celebrate, and I think everyone wants to. I think there was some concern where, you know, initial information that we received was maybe not, you know, I think things are still in a change phase, and so that way I think we can figure out what the next first step is.
I would recommend, as I always do, anyone who has questions or wants an answer or wants correct information, feel free to call me, send me an email.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, when we did this pool project, and a lot of the residents in this room now were here part of that pool project, it was subcommittees of various different bodies of community, of different junior commissions. And it was the same process that John's talking about that we did. Now, if the other step means that we bring in, after John has his experts come in and measure out the park and has the parkland and has some suggestions, and we do a sit down with the residents and they come in, I don't disagree with anything that you're saying as far as the residents' involvement in this project is important because it's for the residents of this community. This park's just not for me, or it's just not for you.
Right.
And more inputs the better. I mean, the Junior Commission has worked, it has been a great process. It's worked in the past for us, and we've used this in this community many times. I don't think we need to get rid of the Junior Commissions if that's what you're saying, and maybe I'm misreading it, but if I am, then I apologize. It's been a great aspect. It's worked well. Once again, it worked on the pool, it worked on some of the park programs, it's worked on some of the play structures, and I think the process that John has is a good process. If we need to add another step to it to make the citizens more buy into it, I don't think there's one person up here that doesn't want this project at the very end to walk up this project and say, God, we're proud of this project. I mean, if anyone's implicating that any commissioners up here feel that, that's just not true, because everyone wants it to be the great project. If it takes 6 months or if it takes 6 years to get it done, to be done the right way, then I support that process.
And I love the junior commissions. I in no way was implying that we disband them. I think.
Okay, well, I thought you meant it. I'm sorry.
You can't disband them, they're in the charter.
I thought
I will not go for
the
that.
subcommittees,
I
the
will have none
subcommittees
of
that were
that.
part of it. Commissioner Perry, I meant the subcommittees that were organized to be part of the process. That report then back to junior commissions.
And personally, I mean, I think the Parks and Rec Commission does so much work on this type of stuff already. I was sort of surprised that they weren't sort of the committee versus having a subcommittee, just the committee, like looking into this.
Well, because it's a project that affects the whole community. We're not just, I was under the impression that we're looking at the whole community park project, not just the east side, and I thought input from everybody was a valid asset instead of just one focus group.
Can we beat this to death?
I just need direction.
I
mean, the process that's been outlined this evening, everything moves along in the path just as we have been. And so the subcommittee continues to work while the survey is being done and while the process moves forward. Is that the direction that you wish to continue?
Can that add the type of community input meeting? Can that be done at an earlier phase, John, before drawings are done? Or do you recommend that some what-if drawings be done to spark conversation as to what fits and what doesn't fit?
This is gonna have to be a managed process, okay? Because one of the things that when you get into a design workshop is you have to really take a look at, you have to go through kind of a very quick stakeholder assessment because you don't want the design workshop biased by any particular group.
Sure.
So, if this is gonna be, because Gainsborough is a community park, not a neighborhood park, then the design workshop, we have to make sure that we have adequate and geographic representation from the entire community there. Is that understood?
Mm-hmm.
You all agree with that?
I agree.
Fine. That can be done pretty much at the same time. We had the open house structured, typically we run them from 4 to 7 o'clock. We have the concepts that are formulated based on survey results for people to come in and react to. What I'm hearing the gentleman that got up and talked about the design workshop is that we would not have the concept drawings, that people would come in having the survey results and then they would articulate what they want at the various parks. Now, we have to open, this process is being dovetailed with the MDNR process. This is not a Gainsborough master plan process. This is a 5-year park and recreation master plan for the entire city. So, we can dovetail Gainsborough in at the open house, but we also have to fairly consider what some of the other recommendations are for the other parks in town too. Memorial, Stevenson, Hessel, Fort Ridge, Pool have to be part of that process in order to be certified as a 5-year DNR plan. So it's gotta be a managed process, but if you want to integrate at the open house some type of design component, if that's the wish of the city commission, we can do it. But my recommendation is that that has to be somewhat managed too, so it's
compliance with the DNR process.
Correct. It's community-wide. Okay.
I have no problem with that.
Any questions on that? Sound good?
Sure.
Well, I guess, and I don't want to belabor or beat the point here. My specific concern for Gainsborough would be, and I understand the requirements for the master plan, citywide parks master, but as far as specifically what the subcommittee that's working on the Gainsborough Park improvements, if they could have a standalone, maybe evening or opportunity when the weather gets warmer in Gainsborough, invite the public. I agree entirely about managing the stakeholders and making sure that there's not one group. I would want to ensure that that is not the case, so we get skewed results or one group could dominate the discussion. So I agree with the managed concept of it, but I am interested at an early level of having those type events, exclusive of the master plan events, but specifically for the Gainsborough Park.
Can you do that? Can you do that for Gainsborough Park and have it be compliant with the DNR requirements?
At the direction of the city commission, yeah.
I mean, is that, are you, I guess my other question, my real question is, can you have that type of open house and have it fit in and be compliant with the
try
DNR
to
process?
make it efficient and cost effective, is that when our landscape architects are gonna be in the field, doing their field assessment, we will coordinate that with Sherry. Sherry can let the community know. And if anybody wants to join us on our field walk of Gainsborough to tell us what they like or don't like, we're more than happy to have a crowd of 30 or 40 follow our landscape architect.
See, I think that's a great suggestion.
Okay, while we're here, I don't have a problem if people want to follow us around, they do it in other communities.
Cool. I would ask that we get enough
Seems to
notice.
make sense.
Okay.
But so my question is, how do you know this is going to be a skewed opinion? No, I'd like to make sure that this isn't
Well, no,
just a group
what'll
of people
happen,
that.
what'll happen,
Right.
Commissioner, is that if folks want to walk with us through, they can tell us what they like or don't like. We just compile the information. It's just part of the process that we use.
Okay.
Okay. And you would get the feedback on that somewhere. Okay. And if anybody, if the same 30 people want to go to each one of the other parks with us, we're more than happy to do that as well.
Well, if it's a different 30 people.
That's fine too. Yeah, you're welcome.
I would entertain a motion to
Thank you, John.
Adopt John's articulation of the trailing along with the planners during the field measurements of the park.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we allow for the residents, 30 people, to trail along with Mr. Icoangeli and his team when they are touring the park.
Is there support?
Well, I just want to. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just want to make sure. So, are we following his whole plan of process? I mean, I want to make sure that we're.
That's the question I had.
I mean, that's fine, and I don't disagree with Commissioner Perry, but I would like just to make sure that we follow the plan of process with a survey.
I
With a.
I think miscommunication so far has been our biggest
Yes,
hurdle.
I think so too.
Let me just go through the process again.
Please, because then we'll make sure we make the motion to follow it.
Okay. We are going to follow the MDNR 5-year certification process.
Okay.
Task 1 is coordination of planning, something I do. Task 2 is community description, something that I do. Okay? I can say it in one word. Inclusive. Okay? For the community. Administrative structure is something that Sherry and I and Scott do because we have to take a look at administrative structure and budget. The fourth component is inventory of recreation facilities. And at that stage, I will coordinate with the city manager and the assistant city manager when we would be out in the field. And that can be notified to the community, and if anybody wants to meet us at the prescribed date and time, they can walk with us and do the field assessment.
So moved.
Okay, the next process is description of planning and public input, that's part of the DNR. And included in that is what type of public input process are you going to use? We're doing 2, 3, survey, open house / design session. And then the third part is actually the formal public hearing before the city commission. And then the last component is the action program, which identifies the capital projects, not only for Gainsborough, but for all of the parks. And then you would adopt the 5-year rec plan, and in that would be recommendations for Gainsborough and all the other park facilities. And that's the process.
Okay. Scott, you got all that on tape?
We do, yeah.
So so moved will work.
So there
support?
was another motion, but the
It
and
was
started.
not seconded.
Okay,
It was
all
not
right, I just wanna make sure.
seconded.
All right.
I just have something I want to say first,
One
Mr.
little
Mayor.
question.
One little question. Little.
Jody
One.
Metzger, 28 Sylvan. When
Yes,
the-
plenty of advance notice.
okay, at least a
That's your
week.
question.
Is that good? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I heard your
I make
question
no-
before. You want to be notified, give you plenty of time. I heard your comment.
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
Well, I agree.
I would cancel something to watch.
And we can do it on a Saturday.
Motion by Commissioner Bushy, is there a support?
Support. Just one comment, if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I just want to point out one thing. First of all, this is directed to you, Mr. Krzyjak. The city manager has done a lot of projects, and the process has worked very well in the past, and it's going to work good now. But for us to go and look at these commissions and decide who should and shouldn't because he paints his door orange, I paint mine red. So doesn't mean that I don't have good ideas, neither does Sean have good ideas. So I think the way that the city manager has set it up with getting all these different people to come in from junior commissions and outside of the junior commissions is the right way to do it. And she's right about them going back to their commissions and talking to their neighbors, talking to their other commission members, and talking to other people. That's how the word gets to the community. Just like the word got to the community about the structure that we weren't even gonna do. It gets all over the place because everybody's talking about it, and that's how all this information gets out. And I think we have to show the total support to the city manager of how these things are done, because she's done it, she's been here long enough and knows exactly what works. And as Mr. Bushy said earlier about the pool, that's exactly what happened with the pool. They got this group together, they put it together. Excuse me, put it together, and now we got this great pool at Fort Ridge. So I think you have to give confidence to the city manager, which you say you do, but then you question everything she does. I think that has to come to an end.
Okay.
So I second the motion, so you can take it from there.
To Commissioner Rubino's point, if you so endorse what our city manager has embarked on, the only thing I questioned was why weren't we involved in that from the onset. Now, if this was brought to a January, a December, a November to agenda item, hey, we have this thing going on with the park, we got the master plan that needs to be, how would you guys want me to proceed? I think that would have been a legitimate discussion. The thing that I questioned was, why weren't we involved as a commission in directing some of that direction?
I can address that.
Can I just say to Commissioner Rubino's point, I have the utmost respect for what our city manager does. I know she works incredibly hard. I'm not questioning her integrity. I'm not questioning her ability. I'm questioning the process. And that is what I had concerns about. I expressed it in an email. I was very congenial. Those are my concerns as a city commissioner. It's not a critique of Sherry Ball, our city manager. It's not, I think she's doing a horrible job. I think she does an excellent job. I think she does a great job for this community. I have questions about the process, independent of Sherry Ball.
Yes, absolutely. And we didn't discuss it today, but I did get the email addressing your concerns, and believe me, I've heard them already. But the process, which I know you have learned by now, is anytime something new, something idea I might have, something I'm thinking about, or something I've started, that's in your confidential memo every week. And always feedback is encouraged and welcome on any item. And I think of all the managers that I personally know, not many write 10 and 11 page memorandums every week. So
Color coded.
yeah, color coded. I really try to give you an in-depth report, not only of things that are happening in the city, or things that are gonna happen in the city, but things that I'm thinking about. And if there is an objection, and there have been in the past, then I know, and it's like, whoa, well, let's wait a minute, we'll talk about this at a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
But there was never any, intention to keep the city commission out of it, but this is not a city commission role. This has always been an administrative role.
Exactly.
And this has always been the appointments given to the junior commissions, cause they're the workers. They're the worker bees that report to you. That's the process.
Correct. So I would just like to re-emphasize, because it's been.
But that's always been the process.
Always.
Yes.
Up
Always.
until this master plan, that's been the process.
I don't want the citizens of this community to feel that I disrespect or have a low opinion of our city manager. It is the opposite. And the questions that I bring to her are on procedural issues. So I would just like that stated on the record.
Good enough.
Maybe take a vote.
Commissioner Bushy,
Yes.
Commissioner Urbino,
Yes.
Commissioner Krzyjak,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry,
Yes.
Mayor Costelli.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is consideration of the authorization of the city manager to request reimbursement of authorized expenses from the Oakland County West Nile Virus Fund. Sherry.
Mayor, this is something we have to request every year. A formal action is required by the governing body in order to receive funds for the West Nile program that's offered through Oakland County. My recommendation is that the city manager be authorized to request this reimbursement so that the expense so that we can receive the funds from Oakland County.
Motion by Commissioner Rubino. Is there support?
Second.
May we take a vote?
Commissioner Urbino,
Yes.
Commissioner Bushy,
Yes.
Commissioner Krzyjak,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry,
Yes.
Mayor Costelli.
Yes, motion carries. City manager's report.
We have an opening on the Board of Review. We currently have someone who started a full-time job, and so she will be able to attend the Board of Review in the evenings, but not during the day, so it's better if we can find someone who could work day and evening hours. So applications are available at City Hall. As Commissioner Rubino pointed out, Brad Bannon.
That starts when, Sherry? When the Board of Review
Board of
starts?
Review, the date, it's a Friday.
It's this Friday, Monday, and Tuesday.
Right.
So we need them quick.
Yeah, well, no, this year
This year
is
we'll-
fine.
Oh,
We've
it's
worked
next
it
year.
out.
Okay.
But if anyone is interested, that's a tough one to fill because the hours are really strange. As Commissioner Rubino pointed out, Brad Bannon, one of our historical commissioners, had to resign, and so there will be an opening on the historical commission, and there may be another one in the fall. We have 2 applications on file with the city, and the city clerk will have to contact those people to see if they're interested in a specific commission or if any commission is fine. I was gonna remind you that compost collection begins April 1st. And then one issue I was gonna bring to your attention, I had a request from a resident that lives on Oakland Park to ask the city to consider putting up a stop sign on Ridge Road. That is certainly not within my authority to say no. Obviously, it would take some time, it would take some study to look at this, and so my request to you this evening, my purpose of telling you this is number one, to inform you, but to ask you if this is something you would like me to pursue.
I just have one question if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Is that considered major road?
Ridge Road is a major road.
I think isn't there criteria on Act 51 that you can't put stop signs on certain parts of major roads?
I don't know, I don't think so, because we had them on Woodward Heights.
It has to meet certain warrants.
Yeah,
Certain
certain
size.
number of driveways, yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta be 36 inch or something.
But I think you can put them if you meet the criteria. I don't know enough, and I
Why
haven't
is
looked at one thing. The
why is
question
the
is, do you want me
problem,
to look at
well,
it?
why is the
Is that a
problem
safety
worse at Oakland Park than it is at Elm Park, or that it is anywhere else on Ridge Road? What
I'm
is the
not aware that
peculiar
it's any
issue?
worse anywhere. All I know is the email request was
North and
based on, no location in particular.
Oh.
Was just based on the heavy amount of vehicle traffic at that intersection.
Well, maybe we should do a traffic study.
That's my question, do you want me to pursue this or not?
Is that gonna cost us
Is
money?
that a TIA free thing, or is that spend money thing?
No, I don't think there would be any funds, it would be time. My time is extremely crunched right now.
I would recommend we certainly not do it until after budget's done.
Okay.
And then we can reconsider it at that time and see if anybody else joins in the request. I'm not aware of any huge traffic problem there.
It is one person making a request.
I drive that every day.
I think most people do.
Yeah. And there's no stop sign in my street, and I get by just fine.
There used to be a light there though.
Yeah, well, that was before I bought my house.
I remember it. That's all I have for my report, thank you.
Other business?
I have one for
Commissioner
short.
Perry?
There was I talked to some residents about a very interesting thing, which Scott actually helped me clear up. The Planning Commission is working very hard, as you know, you guys are all, on the intersection of Oakland Park and Sylvan with Woodward. And some residents were talking about how they walk that and how it is so hard. They were walking on the south side of that intersection, and they were walking westbound, and that the traffic coming off Oakland Park turning right, like, does not pause for pedestrians. And you guys have a very good solution with the Z solution of the pedestrian path.
The hash marks.
Yes, which I'll let you explain what that is, but the I had it backwards, so actually it makes a lot more sense because then it goes from north to south.
Correct, you actually cross
from over here.
Yeah.
So
So to direct the traffic to the north part, is that what you're talking about, the foot traffic?
Yep, the foot traffic is on the north side on the west side of Woodward, and then on the south side on the east side.
On the east side, it's on the south
And
side.
So it's a Z, that's what you mean by Z. I thought you meant cross-hatching the.
Well,
and that too.
Yeah.
And then which will be great because as we all know, we are looking so hard at traffic, to our left for traffic on Woodward, from whichever side you're on, that sometimes we forget to take that look back to the right or straight ahead to see the pedestrians. And so everybody please look for pedestrians.
Anybody else?
I got one real quick thing, Sherry. I've noticed in our reports that we are not receiving any more detailed reports from the fire department or any attendance for the fire chief at any of our meetings. Has there been a new policy change or?
Actually, I did get an explanation just this week. I was getting a little bit concerned because I was unable to reach anyone in the fire department, including the chief, but there was a mix-up with phone numbers, and so I certainly have a phone number now that he is available 24/7. I discussed with him the change in the reports that are being filed with the city and told him that we keep our own records of, the type of call, where the call went, number of response.
Right.
And it was as simple as it was turned over to a different person and that person didn't look back to see what the city was receiving. And so yesterday or today, one of the firefighters brought in January, February, and March with all the backup detail. I didn't ask for anything further, but going forward, and they were very apologetic, so.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, it was good news.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
We do.